So they send back access to all of your Gmail or whatever it was account, and it had hundreds of emails with me and other attorneys and my investigator on the team talking about case strategy, and those were all in their file.
Welcome back to the next aid station. I'm your host, Jake Kilgore. In studio, on my left, Mick Garrison. You have a hoodie on. You look freezing cold. Now you're going to be warm.
I'm blacked out.
Great. And the guy on my right, if you don't know him, this is the guy that convinced me to go to prison for 5 years. Eric Benson, everybody.
Glad you're out. Yeah, good to see you.
Here we go. Now, you may open your rock star. Right on the mic.
There we go. Hang on.
Oh, that's
great. Hang on. Cheers.
There you go.
This is what I get for coming on.
Yes. Well, this is take 2, everybody. Most of our listeners know that we shoot on Tuesdays. Today's Thursday. This is take 2 of the Eric Benson episode.
I was here on Tuesday.
For an hour and a half.
Watching a couple of very bad IT people and you guys.
Well, they're very aware because we, on Super Bowl Sunday, came in here for 3 hours and shot a 2.5-hour episode with Killian Korth, who you may not know, kind of a big deal and a very good friend of ours. Shot the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then sent it to our producer, Guy. No audio. I think one of us, probably me, the guy speaking, didn't hit record. You got to hit record like 4 times on that little device over there. But breaking news to all of our viewers. We have audio to the Killian pod.
Yeah.
What happened, Mick?
Steven went wizard on it last night. I
did.
don't know. We got a text saying, check this shit out. And it sounds pretty good.
He said something else in his text.
What?
There was a little more color.
This is a family. This is a family show, right?
Nope.
I was told this was a family show.
What did he say? What did he say?
I don't know.
Oh. Anyway, I listened to it last night, and I was like, dude, that you can hear it.
It's good enough.
We can release this.
Yeah.
Killian, are you hearing this? Bro, let's go.
Is the audio on? Yes. So apparently...
This is sounding like a pattern, Jake. 404B.
Hey, stop giving me your lawyer quotes already. So apparently, in these nice cameras that we have purchased over time, they have little mics on them, little microphones. And we're able to abstract the audio from the cameras, not from these hosses. These mics are, like you said, Bob and Tom.
Fisher and Todd. Yeah,
Fisher
taken
and Todd.
straight from the Arrow.
The Arrow. Right from the radio show. So these give us fantastic audio. In fact, we actually get a lot of comments. You probably don't know this. We get a lot of comments about our show, and several that are like, your guys' audio is always just on point. It's like really good because we went, you got a studio, you got nice mics. So many podcasts out there that just have bad audio.
Right.
They do like the Zoom interview and it's echoey.
It's mid.
Yeah.
It's mid.
It's really great when it works too, right?
And then when you hit record, it's fire, dude. It's amazing. So that's enough for the intro. Eric Benson, huge trail runner. If you haven't looked him up on ultrasignup.com. Tons of races.
I like to keep a low profile.
I'm
into privacy.
Black mode.
Eric,
You're not going to find a lot out there.
On
purpose.
How's your Strava look?
Strava's looking pretty good. I think I did 9.5 minute miles on the Peloton yesterday. So
you're definitely avid biker runner. Like you're in shape. You're fit. You're not
for an old man attorney, fat old man attorney. Yes.
But you're not an idiot like all of our listeners.
I haven't achieved that level yet. I'd love to.
Of idiocy.
Yes.
Is that a word? Lawyer?
Idiocy, I believe that's a word.
Right. You're like my dictionary today.
I thought that's what he did. I thought he looks everything up.
No, he's just a dick. You're a dictionary.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know how you tolerate that.
It stung.
Ouch. All right, so on today's show, we gotta touch on a number of topics that I've got lined up. Conversation will go wherever it goes. Typical to our show format, I come up with a bunch of things to talk about, hit you guys live with whatever we have.
Great.
But we will talk extensively about trial running and the Jake Kilgore story and what role Eric Benson played.
I'm pretty familiar with it.
Yeah, have you brushed up on the Jake Kilgore story lately? Did you Google anything before you came in?
It's all right here, brother.
It's all
Yeah.
Vault.
I'll never forget.
It's all right here. Give me just before we dive in, I don't want to mess up your career path, but if I recall right, you were
I'm on this show, so
well, that's already
Yeah.
screwed you up.
Yeah.
All your clients are dropping you the second this pod drops tomorrow morning. But you were an AUSA prosecutor.
correct.
Then you went defense, and that's when we met.
Yeah, so I started out as an assistant U.S. attorney, AUSA. I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office for about 5.5 years, prosecuting everything from drug cases, bank robberies, violent crimes, to the white-collar stuff, where I kind of gained an expertise into Medicare fraud, securities fraud, the different wire fraud cases. I then left and went into private practice and went to a big law firm in Salt Lake called Ray, Quinney & Nebaker. It was at that point that I did mostly work against my old colleagues, against the government, against different regulatory agencies, and I think that's when we met. 2012, probably 2013.
Yep.
When I was working as an associate, I then became a partner there and did primarily the kind of cases we're probably going to talk about today are what I dealt with every day. My old friends and colleagues, cases back in New York, Florida, California, all across the country, doing defense of those charged with crimes or those being investigated, both individuals and companies. Are you impressed yet?
Wow.
Would you hire me?
I did.
It's a good resume.
We paid a lot of money to him.
I don't think you hired me. You hired my firm, and they just stuck me on it. And you thought, who's this guy? Yeah.
Luckily, we chose your firm because then we got you, bro.
I feel the same way. No, it was quite an experience.
Wait, but we're missing something there.
It's all in the book.
You weren't the first lawyer.
So
Did that other lawyer work for your firm too?
Yeah.
my
Oh, that's the
partner,
part I
Larry.
didn't
Yeah,
know.
my partner Larry, who passed away a few years ago. He was at the firm when I came over from the U.S. Attorney's Office. He was more than happy to get me up to speed on the Orbit Medical case and have me help with that because my former boss was the prosecutor on the case, a guy named Mark Harada, who I had worked with in the U.S. Attorney's Office. So Larry kind of brought me up to speed on it. And then next thing, I believe I was giving you Dr. Peppers in our conference room back in those days.
Yeah. Mountain Dew, I'm sure.
Mountain Dew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This was about a year or two pre-Rockstar, but I've been going hard on the Rockstar since about 2013.
Yeah, okay. It shows, right?
Did you ever
Your energy. You always got energy.
Just look at my face.
Did you ever go to our old office at the One Solar building in Woods Cross?
I went to that office many times. Yes.
Did you go into his war room?
I think I started the war room.
Okay.
Yeah.
None of us knew at the very beginning.
Right.
None of us knew what the war room was. He had this secret room, and the door was locked, and inside of it, it looked like a beautiful mind, like strategizing for one of your races.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some of that I'm a big, whiteboard guy, so I think we had many sessions in there. And the interesting thing about my job is if I have a client and that client says, don't tell anyone that you're working for me, don't tell them what you're doing, there's a sensitive investigation, I go home, I have dinner with my family, they have no idea what I do all day a lot of the time, especially when a case becomes public, if someone's indicted and it's in the news, then it kind of comes out that I'm working with them. But I've had folks that, I've worked with, prominent people in this community that I've helped that maybe charges never came and I've never told a soul. So it's very confidential. That's, there's attorney-client privilege. So anything that my clients say to me, I cannot, not only can I not gossip about it if I do, I should be in trouble with the bar and ethically. So yeah, I do a lot of things, or there's a lot of, I don't know, you learn to be very circumspect when you're dealing with these sensitive situations.
The war room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe describe it a little better for those.
Eventually, you let me in, but I don't think you let a lot of people in there.
0. Actually.
No, I went in.
I know, but
I'm 1. That's not 0.
for a long time.
Yeah, bro.
So we started One Solar in a tiny office in West Bountiful, Woods
Oh
Cross.
yeah. 2012.
2012 or 13. Well, one company before that, One Energy.
Yeah.
That was the first war room that we had.
Oh, you had one over there?
Yeah. Remember down the
you
hall?
Sneak.
Well, down the hall, we weren't leasing any of that space, and nobody was leasing it, but they gave us a key to a room down there. So we had a room down there in 2012, 2013.
To this day, I did not know that.
Really?
Uh-uh.
Yeah, it was a room a little bigger than this, and it had a skylight in it. And then we'd taped everything up in there and highlighted, and I mean, I would go in there every Friday.
Yeah.
It was my Friday for a year. I would go in there and I would just read and make notes and rehearse and just look at all the notes and look at depositions, and then he would come in and we'd meet every Friday almost, or every other.
Because I'd bring my investigator with me.
That's right. He came
Hargraves
in.
came in.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Hargraves would come in, and we'd just go hard for 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
Every Friday, dude.
Yeah.
Then we started One Solar, and we moved when we started the company, got a lease 3 miles north. That's the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Had a war room there for a year.
Yeah.
Then between there and the next move, where we stayed for 8.5 years off Redwood Road, did not have a war room, because by the time the Woods Cross shop, that's where we're preparing for trial, and I eventually pled guilty when we were in that shop.
Yep.
So when we moved, the war room was burnt to the ground.
But there was a Maverick across the street. I do remember that.
Yeah.
That's how you get me to come places.
Yeah. Maverick. See, we got a Chevron here real close.
I'm kind of a connoisseur of convenience stores.
Yeah. When you have the experience that you have, and you recognize that 1% of people, or whatever it is, beat the feds.
Yeah.
When you're doing these war rooms and you're talking to him, like, going into the case, you got to be realistic. Like, how do you deal with that, knowing, like, I'm going up against a monster?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's 2 parts of that. I think that it's probably higher than 1% to beat the feds. So if you look at the statistics, which I'm sure Jake's told you about many times, it's the feds, meaning the federal government, the Department of Justice, typically wins in that they obtain convictions 90 to 95% of the time. So if you look at that, but remember, like, I think maybe the statistic you're referencing is that I think it's 2 to 3% actually go to trial. So you have 97% who plead guilty. Now, they may plead guilty to some very reduced charge, which is a win for me if they plead to a much lesser offense that's 2 years in prison as opposed to 20 years in prison. But they still count that as a win.
I'll cut you out. Yeah, a win for you as a defense attorney.
As a defense attorney, because I know my client could be facing something much higher, so I'm mitigating the damages. So you kind of have to deal with that. But then you also have, those that go to trial. I still think it's probably 85% conviction rate for the 2 or 3% that go to trial. But these are the folks either where the cases really are close, or you get people, and I'm not putting Jake in this category, but unreasonable folks, pro se, you get a ton of tax protesters, people who represent themselves and go up against the government, and I would say it's about 99.9% conviction rate for those folks. But those are part of the people that go, and then you go, and there are people who are acquitted, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but the hard part about a case against especially the federal government is they can pick 20 crimes, right? And you have to win. You have to go 20 for 20. They have to go 1 for 20. So if they convict you on 1 Jeremy Johnson case. Maybe you heard about this a few years ago, and I know
This was
we
going
talked
on
about
during
this.
my case, Jeremy Johnson out of St.
Maybe.
George.
I don't know the.
He had kind of an internet sales marketing company, and the theory was that he was deceiving consumers with some of his practices. So the case is charged by the same U.S. Attorney's Office. Jeremy Johnson represented himself, and then he also had Marcus Mumford, who was really legendary in battling the government, and Jeremy Johnson goes to trial, and he wins. And I don't know the numbers, but I think he won, he was acquitted on 12, and he was convicted on 3 or 4. So he comes out of the courthouse, and I remember talking to you about this.
Oh, yeah.
And he's jumping up and down, and he's waving his fist, and he's saying, I just kicked their ass, kind of a thing. And I think I said to Jake, he's still going to sentencing. And Judge Newfer is the same judge, right? And we know how he rolls. And the judge didn't appreciate that. And the judge, I think, took him into custody a couple of days later. So now he's in custody before his sentencing, and he's thinking, I won. And then he goes to sentencing, and he's sentenced on the 3 cases or the 3 counts where he was convicted, and he ends up getting a sentence kind of like everybody else, whatever it was, 10 years or something.
You got
like that.
Yeah, you got 12 or 13
Yeah.
years.
So it wasn't like, oh, well, he was in other businesses, if you go, 10, 15%, the sentence is going to be kind of prorated. That's not how it works. So the feds have this enormous advantage. And when I'm talking to a client for the first time, like you say, Mick, man, this is a monster we're dealing with. I want to let them know that, and I don't know if Jake feels this way. One thing I've tried to do as a defense attorney is listen, because I think there's a lot of attorneys, we've done this a long time. We know how it goes. We know what you're up against. The last thing I want to do, especially if I'm talking to someone who's bringing his wife in, who has a family, who's had a successful career, is say, you're screwed. Let me tell you, the odds aren't looking good. You're going to pay me, and you're going to go through this whole process, but we're all going to end up in the same place. And I think a lot of attorneys do that. What I like, there's a dance, right? And you have to let the dance play out. So in that first meeting, I'm going to listen to my clients. I'm going to believe my clients. I'm going to engage a private investigator. Even if the facts seem like they fit a pattern that I've now seen, 50 times, 100 times, I'm not going to say, well, yeah, you come on. Let's start talking about a plea, because now my client thinks I'm just working for the government and I'm just part of this system that they can't trust. I want my client to feel like I believe in them, and I've had some clients with some real stories, right? Like, okay, but I really make an effort to listen to them and let them know that I believe in them, but it's when the evidence, stacks up and the government does their thing, and I say, I can't find any witnesses that support your story, but I still believe in you, then we talk about realistic options. But I wait months, if not years, before we have that come to Jesus type talk, because I just don't think it's productive. And by the way, I have had clients that say, hey, if you find this piece of evidence, you're going to see that I'm not guilty. And we found it, and we've sent it over to the government, and they like to dismiss quietly, before they get embarrassed. So I've had many clients that were going to be indicted, and they just didn't even bring the case. So it's good to keep, I think as a defense attorney, keep an open mind and assume you're going to win every time, even though it is stacked against you.
You're up against the unlimited budget and the odds of 90+%, 95%. Like, this is, so your goal is like, you don't really want to let it get to trial because of those numbers. Is that a thought that's like, we don't want this to go to trial, Jake? Because if it goes there, the odds say this.
Yeah, so to put that another way, you shouldn't be penalized for exercising your constitutional right to go to trial. Everybody has a right under the 6th Amendment of the United States Constitution to a criminal jury trial with competent counsel. So if you want to go to trial and the government has the burden, as the defense, we don't have to do anything. All we have to show is that there's reasonable doubt and the government didn't make their case. So you think, well, the pressure's all on the government. Now, in reality, that's not the way that it works. The way that it works is, if you go to trial under our sentencing scheme, you are penalized. So, okay, if you want to go to trial, that's fine. Go for it. But the United States sentencing guidelines say that, oh, man, there was $50 million involved. whether or not anyone lost any money, that doesn't matter. It's how much was involved in the whole deal. And if it's $50 million, that's what drives the sentencing guidelines. And that's 25 years in federal prison. So if you lose, do you really want to deal with that? Or we'll give you 10 years if you take the deal tomorrow and don't make us do any work. And so as a defense attorney who understands the system, I'm faced with a lot of pressure if I say, no, we're going to trial. We want this trial because I love the trial. I mean, I was trained, I've taught evidence classes at Utah and BYU. I like being in there. I like cross-examining witnesses. I get to hear myself talk for like a couple of weeks, right? Ask my wife. I have a captive audience, but I don't want to do it at the risk of, if my client is now doing decades as opposed to a couple of seasons, missing a couple of Christmases or missing, entire generations. So they put a ton of pressure on you.
Yeah.
And is it fair? Not all of it.
Do you I don't know if believe in it's the right way, but 10 years of somebody's life that almost feels like a game. Don't make us work or we're going to give you 25 years. So just take the 10. And I'm like, you can ruin somebody's life in 10 years. Do you still believe in our system? Do you think it's
this guy asks good questions? Good questions.
Right, my partner.
So they can and do ruin people's lives on a regular basis, 100%. They are as competitive. We're trial lawyers, right? We're competitive. They want to do justice. And when I say they, I know a lot of great people who work in the U.S. attorney's offices, FBI, ATF, DEA. There are a lot of bad people and that should be in prison for a long time. And I totally believe in what they do. I did it, and I feel great about some of the cases I brought. I'm sure some of the people that I prosecuted don't feel that way. So, I don't want to say everybody's just corrupt, everybody's awful. I actually don't think that many people are corrupt. What I do think is that the system is amazing. I love the Constitution. I love our trial system. I love everything about it. So it's not perfect, but I think it's as close as we can get. The problem is we have such high sentences. We're sentencing people who are nonviolent, first or second time offenders to decades. I think it's a colossal waste of time and money. Whether you're a conservative or a liberal, if you're a liberal and you care about more individual rights, if you're conservative and you don't want a bloated federal budget, you've got prisons where it's, I don't know, what, $40,000, $50,000 a year to incarcerate folks who aren't dangerous. I believe much more in, hey, if somebody committed a crime, make them pay money, make it hurt financially. Putting someone who's not violent in a prison for 20 years has very little societal use to me. I think it is a huge waste of lives and energy, and it's ripping families apart. So no, I'm not a believer in these long sentences. I think there are people who should go away for a very long time and never get out. But I think that's a very small group of people. I think a lot of the people that I prosecuted and I've defended deserve very little or no prison time, even if they committed the crime.
Yeah, that's well said. I could just be in my own mind here, but I feel like the majority of the people in this country probably agree with that. So why can't it be fixed?
Yeah, that's above my pay grade. I do know that in 1980, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but I'm sure you could look this up quickly, that the level of mass incarceration from 1980 to 2020 just went up exponentially. And there's a host of reasons for that. I did a little bit of criminal justice reform lobbying with my old partner, Brett Tolman, and kind of got into this a little bit in that it doesn't make any sense. The rate with which we're building prisons and we're housing nonviolent offenders, many of them, they're here illegally. And I'll just say the immigration debate's obviously something that people are talking about a lot these days. And I look at it and I kind of smile because I think immigration is something that people have strong opinions on. But what is interesting are the violent criminals or nonviolent criminals that we're putting away for all of these years who are not in the country legally, and we're spending so much money, like everybody else, for nonviolent cases, and they're going away for 20 or 30 years. But some of these private prisons are making a lot of money. There's a lot of money in incarcerating folks, and then the federal government, I think recently there's been some desire to curtail this on both sides of the aisle. But the federal government, they love the minimum mandatory sentences. They love the sentencing guidelines. They love the high numbers. And so my uncle was a federal judge, and so I watched that side of it. I watched him deal with these prosecutors coming in wanting 50, 60-year sentences. And a lot of times he had no discretion. So the system has gotten out of control, and I think you're right. The average person is like, why would even someone who was a drug dealer but had like a couple of grams, why would they go to prison for 20 years? That doesn't, and I get to pay for that. Why don't you put them in rehab, and give them probation or give them, a year or something like that. So I don't think people realize, I didn't realize it until I was in law school and did some papers on some of these minimum mandatory sentences, just how insane, the system can be.
Describe the minimum mandatory for the average listener. What exactly do you mean by that? Yeah,
so, and this is this is something that happened in the 80s, and this is a sports podcast, right? So I can throw out sports references,
Yeah,
right? That's
definitely.
kind of what everything's
well,
tied
we
to.
got the Chanty Bilips on cue.
Okay,
Well, it's WNBA. We dabble in trail running.
right.
So, yeah, sports.
I'm going to be weak on the trail running, but I can hit you with a ton of NFL, NBA. So do you guys remember a guy by the name of Len Bias?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so Len Bias came out of the University of Maryland. I believe it was the 1986 draft. He was drafted by the Boston Celtics, he was sort of the next Michael Jordan. And this was when Jordan had only been in the league a couple of years, and they had Larry Bird, and they were a dynasty, but they were going to add this significant piece, and he was one of the most dynamic players in the country. Len Bias gets drafted. I think later that night he goes back to a college apartment and does a couple lines of cocaine. Apparently he wasn't a cocaine user, so this was, I was a kid at the time, and I remember my dad telling me, see what happens if you do cocaine, and he overdosed, and he passed away that night. Massive story, right? And it's in the D.C. area, so politicians are acutely aware of what happened with Len Bias, and so thereafter they enacted very harsh drug sentencing laws, and they made federal laws. And you're wondering, well, why is possessing cocaine a federal crime? Because drugs have there's specific jurisdiction for all drug cases. So if you're using or distributing drugs, you're going to be prosecuted federally, and there are federal laws. So the Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, who I think was from Massachusetts and a Celtics fan at the time, Democrat, he introduces some legislation. Pretty soon, we have all of these laws that are not only harsh sentencing laws for drug dealers, but for drug users, they're based on quantity, not on the role in the offense. So whether you're a street-level person or you're a mid-level person or you're like a kingpin or you're a cartel member, it all is, what do you have? What's the quantity of drugs? So if you have 5 grams, you're going to get this. If you have 50 grams, well, it's pretty low too. So if you have, I think it's 50 grams, you get 10 years in prison. And you're like, well, that's a lot, but maybe the judge will go easy on you. That's minimum mandatory, meaning if I'm a prosecutor and I charge that case based on 50 grams of someone with no criminal history, no other aggravating circumstances, but we caught this person with 50 grams of methamphetamine, crack cocaine, any of these substances, then I'm going to file that, and the person's guilty. We caught him with the drugs. The judge will then sentence to at least 10 years to life. So the lowest the judge can go is 10 years, which they all do.
The judge cannot deviate from a mandatory minimum.
The judge cannot deviate from the mandatory minimum, and this happened here in Utah about 10 or 15 years ago, actually 20 years ago. I was in law school, and there was a guy by the name of Weldon Angelos, maybe you've heard of this case, who actually had done some music with Snoop Dogg, and he was kind of a small-time music rap producer, and he was a small-time drug dealer. And he had taken, I think, a .22 firearm with him or something to 3 or 4 marijuana deals, and same thing, minimum mandatory sentences, and they stack on top of each other. So they get super draconian when, well, here's the other thing that this is the most unfair part. You're like, well, he did 3 drug deals. The guy shouldn't be given a break. Well, he did 3 drug deals within the same week or two. And the DEA was watching him, and they waited until he had done those deals, right? So they can put them all in the same charging
Stack 'em.
document. They can stack them. So you're thinking, well, he'll only have one because it's in one indictment. No, they will stack in the same indictment. So I believe, and my math could be wrong, but I think it was about 55 years minimum. And Judge Cassell, who was one of our judges at the time, was like, well, this can't be right.
Yeah. It's like,
And
no
the
way.
prosecutors on the case are like, yeah, it's right. And, if he would have gone to trial, we would have given him 65 years or whatever. And I think he went to trial and they said we offered him 20 and he wouldn't take it. What's wrong with him? And, he's like, dude, I barely have a criminal history. And I'm looking at decades in federal prison. So it's one of these, what we're seeing is after these sweeping sentencing laws were created in the 80s, everybody loved them. It was the 80s, right? Tough on crime, say no to drugs. Like, people weren't going to come out against tough sentences for crack dealers and crackheads.
Well, and that Len Bias story is interesting because you said the attorney that brought it, the mandatory minimum, I think, if I'm getting it right, was a D.C. lawyer, but he was like a Celtics fan.
It was the Speaker of the House. So
The
he was
Speaker
in
of
Congress.
the House.
Yes.
In Congress, Celtics fan.
Yeah.
Where did Len Bias get drafted to?
Celtics.
Yeah, bro. In 1986, when they had Bird, McHale, Parrish, and then they get one of the best players out of the draft that year.
I think they beat the Rockets in the finals that year.
And they got
Look it up.
and then they got Len Bias added to their team. I mean, they were already a dynasty. And then they got him. Well, that sounds like that guy wasn't very happy.
Well, this
When they thought it-
but this issue, but the thing is everybody was on board with it. This issue in the 80s, everybody was into it.
Cocaine was going crazy in the 80s.
Going crazy. Everybody was scared of it in the Reagan and Bush administrations. And you think, oh, well, it was just Bush. No, Clinton. And this is where I'm probably never going to be a good political. I'm so apolitical because Clinton in 1994 with Janet Reno as the Attorney General, the Omnibus Crime Control Act of 1994 enacted some of the toughest sentencing and federal criminal laws that we have. Democratic administrations, all done during Clinton. So this was bipartisan. It was like, hey, we want tough sentences. We don't like drug dealers. We don't like organized crime. We don't like the mob. And so the federal government is really good at prosecuting the worst of the worst. And so that's what everybody thinks. Hey, you just go to the DA's office if you're just a small-time offender. But if you're organized crime, if you're a serious drug cartel, if you are a terrorist, then the federal government has the resources to go after the worst of the worst. The problem is when they use it to go after everybody else.
But that goes back to like Al Capone.
Exactly.
Chicago, the 30s, 20s? When was Al Capone? Something like that.
Yeah, so
Maybe not that old.
It is.
Was it?
You're a history buff.
That's right. Okay.
You're a Renaissance man, Jake. So yeah, Al Capone was sentenced for tax evasion. So that's an example of they weren't able to prove the substantive offenses of everything that he did, extortion, loan sharking, murder, all of that. But the laws at the time, the federal laws weren't equipped to go after someone like that. So they get him for tax evasion, but they sentence him as a mob boss,
Kingpin.
Right? As a kingpin, you name it. So everything comes in at sentencing, and they max out his tax evasion sentence. The judge did have discretion. The judge says, hey, you didn't pay your taxes, but you also did a bunch of other bad stuff, so I'm going to send you to Alcatraz for many years. Fair, right? But what happens is in the 50s, I think it was with RFK, they start to see all of these organized crime syndicates that are causing a lot of problems, especially in the East Coast of the United States. And I think they broaden the RICO statutes, which, think about things like, extortion, racketeering, and all the offenses that are state law crimes. But if you do them as part of a pattern and there's a conspiracy, then they created federal laws for that in the 50s, and that's how they successfully finally prosecuted some of the 5 Gambino crime families, mostly in Manhattan and Brooklyn, using federal laws. So federal prosecutor offices became synonymous with going after these sophisticated criminal enterprises. And frankly, I think that's a good way to do things. What I think is interesting, and I guess I'm a federalist, but I'm looking at it, I do think that the states should prosecute the majority of cases, the district attorney, the attorney general, and the feds should prosecute those where there is clearly a federal interest. the question is, what is that? And we'll probably talk about this: Medicare fraud, securities fraud. Somebody robs a 7-Eleven here. Is that a federal case? Well, did they have goods that traveled in interstate commerce? Yeah. Well, the Cokes came from Atlanta. Okay, you got federal jurisdiction. So what you see is this expansive federal jurisdiction. And I think, how many federal crimes out there, Jake?
Yeah, I have no idea.
3,000 to 5,000 federal crimes.
Yeah, I mean,
at last count. They actually asked Congress to count the number of federal crimes, but it's way more than 3,000 to 5,000 because you have these regulatory offenses, which are codified through the federal regulations and all of this, especially on environmental and specific professional, occupational, and those can be criminal penalties as well. So it could be hundreds of thousands. So an AUSA has all of these tools, and if they don't like you, you could be prosecuted for anything.
So, okay, we ran into each other a month ago. Our boys were playing basketball against each other. Dude, what's up? Haven't seen you in a minute. And we started talking about the podcast, and I'm like, dude, you got to listen to this week's episode. Or no, next week's episode. We're having Michelino Sinceri on, which that was for us, 2-3 weeks ago.
Okay.
You listened to that.
I listened, yes.
Our trail running friend of ours, Michelino, as we will say, and he would agree, small potatoes.
Yes.
To my experience, obviously, with the feds.
I would agree with that.
What did you pull out of his story or that podcast? I don't know if you went and looked anything up, but the way that we spoke about it, the way he spoke about it, like the overreaching, you can be charged with. The feds don't even know how many things you can be charged with. There's no way to count the number of things, but we'll call it at least 10,000 different crimes.
Yeah.
If not 100,000.
Right.
His falls in that category of like, are you serious? He cut a trail.
Yeah.
He cut a course and got prosecuted for it.
Yeah, so I think that his case is interesting because I don't know that the federal government is necessarily any more unreasonable than if it were on state land and he cut a trail, right? If you go off of a trail and maybe Utah doesn't prosecute that, but Idaho does. So his case, there are a couple of examples of federal jurisdiction. I've talked to you guys about jurisdiction that has to be grounded in like the Commerce Clause, or there's some you cross state lines, or there's some reason to have jurisdiction, and that's typically what I deal with. The exclusive jurisdiction is you're on federal lands. So if you're and it's Indian reservations, BLM lands, or national parks, if you do something in one of these areas, then the state doesn't have any jurisdiction. So the feds will enforce whatever regulations and laws they have there. So if you're hanging out camping somewhere and you do something wrong, you're going to deal with a Forest Service ranger, BLM person. I think it was Forest Service probably up in Teton. Yeah. So, his case really, to me, is that he did something that the community didn't like, whether it was, they didn't think it was safe, or the trail running community don't appreciate people cutting on their trails, or the hikers, or whatever the reasons are, right? You don't know why you're the one who gets caught, when you're going up Parleys and you're going 80 and you see the M Series BMW going 130 and it doesn't get caught, right? And I'm pulled over. And Jake, you know how I feel about how come I got pulled over and no one else did? That's just life. The thing that struck me about his case was the failure of the system. Because I really do think the Forest Service, I know when I was a law clerk, when you're a third-year law student, you can practice in basically, you could do his case. So a law student could have done, does he go by Mick? Is he also Mick? Or is
his girlfriend wants him to.
Oh, okay.
But he doesn't.
He likes Mike.
Mike. Okay.
So I just rolled Michelino. I don't do either.
I'll say Mike, but it's Mike's
Mick.
case.
On this podcast, it's Mick.
The other Mick. You're the only Mick, right?
Not on this podcast. Me and him.
So his case could have been done by a law student, and I did those cases when I was a third-year law student interning at the U.S. Attorney's Office. I had a case once where, because you had all these people come in, mostly kids who were like busted with some weed, while they were camping, and they'd come in and they'd go in front of the magistrate. Very common, right? Especially with some of these overzealous rangers out there. but they'd all give
overzealous rangers.
Overzealous rangers. Maybe you've dealt with a few of those. But they are, they're quasi law enforcement, right? I mean, they're not the FBI, but they're like, we get to go into federal court. And some of them were kind of funny situations, but they'd usually get the charges dismissed or they'd pay a fine, and it didn't go anywhere like Mike's case. So I had a case, I remember, where a gentleman came in and he had collected rocks on a national park without a permit. And it sounds like a classic federal misdemeanor, right? And so he was charged with collecting rocks without a permit. He could have gotten a permit at the ranger station for free. So we're prosecuting him, and he paid a $200 fine, and we did, I think, what's known as a plea in abeyance, where you plead guilty and then they hold it for 6 months or a year, and if you're good and you don't commit any new crimes, then it goes away. I don't know if that was available here. It sounds like in Mike's case they came out on both sides sort of guns blazing. You know me. I mean, if I were in this situation, and I'll never second guess what other people do, but I probably would have said, Jake, chill. I'm going to call somebody. I'm going to kiss ass, because that's part of my job. I'm going to say, oh my gosh, he is so sorry. What can we do affirmatively? No, we're not going to. Of course, he went off the trail. He was setting a record. It's really amazing. He's actually doing a documentary on it. He's a great guy. Can you give him a plea in abeyance, and can he pay $200? And what can we do, to make this right on day 3? Not on day 500.
It sounds like they did that.
They tried to do that. I don't know all the specifics.
And then they also tried, like, we'll even help with the service. I'll raise the money. I'll put signs up. Make sure no one else does what I did, because lots of people use this unsanctioned course. They just weren't having it.
Yeah, and that's where I don't know what broke down, because, frankly, I believe all of us are inherently lazy at the end of the day. And if you are a prosecutor and you have a case like this, and someone says, I will take a plea in abeyance, meaning I will come in and plead guilty and then give me 6 months, take it off my record, and I'll do a bunch of things. That's a win for the prosecutor, because the case is closed. They didn't beat you. So that's a good thing. Somewhere along the way, something went wrong. I don't know exactly what that was, but dude, if you're doing a misdemeanor trial, a bench trial, first of all, good luck. Whether you think the magistrate is corrupt or not, it's a strict liability offense. You either went off the trail or you didn't, and so you don't have a lot of defenses. It's not
he
like
has no defense.
You have no defense.
He already said I did, and here's my Strava file, and I don't know why they were even going to trial.
So,
right?
Well, they were going to trial because his defense was, they're not giving me a good enough deal, right? And sometimes those cases go to trial because the government's saying, we're not going to give you any deal. And again,
fine, screw you. We'll go to
trial.
trial.
I don't know everything that went on. The stakes are also, like in your case, if you don't mind me sort of comparing it, the stakes were high. Like I said earlier, if they say, well, the guidelines are 10, 15, 20 years, or you can get 3 or 4 or 5, then you have a real decision. If it's, well, you go to trial in front of a judge, and if you lose, you're not going to jail either way. It's a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
If you lose, your fine's $800, and if you win, you don't have to pay anything. If you plead guilty, it's $500. Sounds like you had a friend who was a lawyer. That's another consideration. You're not paying, a lawyer's hourly fees. So what's the downside? Why not go to trial? And going to trial, there's a guy here locally about 10, 15 years ago named Tim DeChristopher, who had kind of like sabotaged these BLM oil leases, and he's a real activist. And he went in, and he had no defense. He did it, and he didn't plead guilty. He went to trial. He had no defense at trial other than, we're all, in great peril because the environment is in trouble. And so I'm going to sort of put on my platform through this trial, and hopefully a juror will not like this case, something known as jury nullification. It didn't happen. He was convicted. It's a Utah jury. Many folks coming from all over the state, rural jurors. It wasn't just like, the avenues. Yeah. So it didn't work.
The jury you want.
Yeah, that wasn't the federal jury is going to be more MAGA than woke. Just if you're thinking about, whether you want to go to trial and on the issue. So, but that was sort of his thing, is he went to trial because he didn't get up and say, well, technically it wasn't me. I didn't actually manipulate these leases. He just said, yeah, I did it because, we have an environmental crisis and the world is going to end, or whatever his reasoning was. And there was really, but sometimes, when you don't have a deal, when the prosecutor's not working with you, that you do have a constitutional right. And I will never criticize someone for going to trial and exercising their constitutional right. They just may have harsher penalties.
Cases like the rock collecting kid or Michelino's trail cutting, those, we'll call them like baby crimes.
Yeah.
Lame. There's ridiculous in my
Right.
mind. Those keep me up at night because with a criminal past, and if I were to go do any one of those number of stupid things, I think about it when I get on an airplane.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I can't do anything stupid here.
Right. Right.
Because it would be a second offense and I'd be just screwed, even as minor and as stupid as the 10,000 of the crimes they could bring to me at any given day. I'm like, dude, I can't backtalk the, whatever they call them. What's the
TSA?
The TSA lady.
Right.
Like, I got to just
They
be
don't
cool.
like that.
I got to just be cool because if I get kicked off a plane or they have to land a plane because of me and I get charged in Kansas City in the middle of my flight.
You don't get to scream at them like the rest of us, right?
Yes, you guys got to pass.
Yeah.
I got to
let off a little steam with those TSA agents when they're giving us a hard time. I'm clear, bro.
Yeah.
I actually
know,
yelled
dude.
at a guy. Not yelled at him, but I defended a TSA agent. He was going off on her because the security line took too long, and he wanted me to pile on.
Yeah.
And you should have
It's
seen
like,
his...
are you with me?
Oh,
Yeah,
this,
he
this
did.
Is this is your Disneyland trip?
No.
Oh, different one.
Before that. Yeah.
Well, you had an issue on the Disneyland one.
Oh, that was just...
Didn't get his
Any
chips
no, it was
fast
a-
enough.
It was, no.
He didn't get his Cheez-Its.
The lady that worked for the TSA in Long Beach, it was just us. We were the only ones in there, and it was like her and another lady. And I go up, and I have my ID, and I have my boarding pass. And I'm like, and I have the two kids on my phone. She goes, actually, we usually ask first who has the kids. And I'm like, okay, great.
They got a system. Don't be messing with the system.
I'm like, would you like to ask me if who has the kids? Who has the kids? I do.
Now.
Awesome.
Now.
Now you
may.
Now you can show me the passes for, what was your name? Dean.
You just really...
Yeah.
Do you ever wonder how many times that's worked? There's been an international kidnapper, and they're just about to make it, and then the TSA agent says, "What's your name?"
Yeah.
And they're
I
like,
think.
Okay.
Let me clue
Bring
the
him in.
Let me clue the TSA in. I think it would be pretty easy to train the kid. There's two questions. What was your name, young one? Dean. And who's this to you? That's my dad. Okay, you can go ahead now.
Yeah, but they asked.
They
Yeah.
got to ask those
Yeah.
two questions like they're
The
just
tough questions.
like they're breaking the code.
Yeah.
There's no way they're getting this
they
kid
look
out
at
of
him
the country.
like, kid.
This is what you will say. Your name is Dean, and I'm your dad.
I always squeeze the shit out of his neck when we travel.
All right, we'll put a little pin in the.
Yes.
We're gonna deep dive into trial running, into my story, but we have to touch on a couple of these topics that I think your takes will be very interesting on.
Okay.
One is unrelated to you, but we talk about it often on the podcast when we do our predictions. And the Albans won Trans Gran Canaria. Henrietta, we'll go with her, and John.
Yeah,
They
John.
both won Trans Gran Canaria. Speaking of Michelino and Jasmine, looks like you guys are behind on trail running's couple of the year. 1-0, Albans. Albans won. Every other couple, 0. There was a couple.
Yeah.
John and Henriette. They both won this big race in Trans Gran Canaria Island. And there are a few couples in trail running, male, female couples. And we're always like, one of these days, they're going to enter the same race and they're both going to win. So we try to predict who's going to win. They freaking pulled it off last weekend.
Wow. How many miles?
It was I think it was about 80 miles and 22,000 feet of climbing or something. Island off of Great Britain, I want to say. Anyway, crazy climate, like rain, cold. Some of the top runners that were predicted to win, at least one of them, 2 of them dropped out. One before the race, one during the race. Tom Evans dropped with like hypothermic conditions. So, second on my list was we gave away our first. See that Rockstar can right there?
This one?
This is the DC Peaks Gold Rush. DC Peaks Rockstar Gold Rush. We did this last year. We're doing it again this year. We go hide a can anywhere in the world, mostly just in Utah. But whoever finds the can, we give a couple clues. We throw it on Instagram. We throw a little riddle on there. If you find the can, it's a free entry into any race distance of DC Peaks. So we're going to hide a can. You got to go find it because you got to run one of our events.
I got an idea.
Okay.
You know the hideout from the Goonies?
Yeah.
You know the basement?
Yeah.
Yeah, One-Eyed Willie.
One-Eyed
Put it down
Willie.
there.
Is that the
Yeah.
haystack in Oregon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go up
I
there.
went there.
Cannon Beach.
Yeah.
That's a place for treasure.
Cannon Beach.
You need me as a consultant. Yeah.
Okay, done. Well, Jeff Galloway found our first can yesterday. Did you know that?
I saw that.
So congrats to Jeff.
Jeff, we need a little bit better video.
Jeff didn't
If
even
you-
give us a video. He just gave us
I
a
know, that's what I'm saying.
post.
Did you announce like
No.
anything with that? I think we should do something cool where whoever makes the most exciting or the funniest or whatever find video,
The best video.
the best find video, shirts off, that type of thing, something exciting.
Something wild, yeah.
Whatever the ladies,
Fantasy football.
whatever the ladies want to
Yes.
do. And then then they can win something, some swag or
An extra entry or something cool.
yeah.
Okay.
So I would
I'll
since we
announce
didn't
that.
announce it, we'll be like Jeff, you can run it back.
Jeff, run it back. Take your shirt off and run up the Great Western Trail.
Yeah.
Can I ask you guys a question? Do I get to ask questions? Or you
Let's
just
go,
ask me
man.
questions?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've been into like
We're being-
running,
we're
biking.
being crossed.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, just a few questions for you guys. So I've been into running, biking. I've done a few triathlons. So I'm kind of like I'm in this lane.
You're
a little
versed.
bit. But what is it that sort of compels someone to go from, hey, because I've run a marathon, it sucked. What really is it
sound
when you
like
do
Mick.
when you do the marathon and you're like, you know what, I want to do 4 of those right now. Like when do you get, because I'm
On the mountain.
I have the
Yeah.
endurance mindset. I've done Grandeur Peak, and I've gone up to the top of Grandeur Peak, and I was there with a guy in my neighborhood who's very fit, and he's a little bit like you guys, and I saw a guy pass me, and he was doing laps on it, right, at night, and it was snowing, and I was like, that dude's different, because I'm up here doing Grandeur Peak at night, and I'm kind of different. But what is it? How do you get to the? I mean, Jake, was dealing with a federal investigation, so that you needed something to clear your head. But I find the psychology interesting as an quasi-endurance athlete myself, on when you take it from, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to go do an Olympic triathlon or a half Ironman, maybe even a full Ironman. But now I want to go run like 100 miles or these. What is it that takes people from being really into fitness, especially cardio fitness, into this next level, even for someone like me that's like, this is really amazing
Jake,
what people are doing.
you answer first. I know that our reasons are different.
Yeah.
And I think I could answer for him,
Okay, I'll answer
but
first.
I want to hear what you say.
I think the first thing that came to mind is there's a saying in running, could be trail or road, that's like when you're running that much, you're running from something.
Mm.
It's like
Yeah.
you're either
That makes
running
sense.
from your marriage, you're running from your job that you freaking hate, you're running from whatever. I think a lot of people use it as for me,
Yeah.
I think my reasoning is very similar to a lot of runners who are like, dude, I just need something else in my life, some balance, because I work a lot, or I'm trying to get off this substance, and I got to move my attention from drinking every day or trying to find the next fix, running becomes my fix. So I think a lot of runners have moved to like, this is my dopamine hit. This is my fix.
Yeah.
For me personally, that's absolutely when I started, was 2013. I ran my first marathon in 2013, and I was under investigation, not quite yet indicted.
Right. Right.
Then I got indicted, and for the next 2.5 years working with you, it was like, this is my aid station. This is like, I look forward to running for an hour or two every day where I can clear my mind, turn my freaking phone off, and I can think about life, whether I'm thinking about the case, I'm thinking about the business we're just starting before I go to trial, think about my kids, but it gave me a break from all the chaos. So it became that for a couple of years. Then for me in prison, running was like, this is my freaking way to get out of here. I'm mentally leaving prison for the next 2 hours while I run laps around this dirt track. Then when I got out, it was like, my competitiveness has come out, I would say, over the last few years, where it's like, I'm competitive, but mostly competitive with myself, exploratory.
I'd never seen that competitive side.
Yeah. You never
when your team
except
kid's
for when I was
beats my kid's team and presses up 40 points, and I'm the guy over there flipping them off.
We're up 20 and we give up 4 straight baskets. We're up 10 or 12, and I put them back into press because I'm pissed. Play some freaking defense. I put them back into press, get the lead back up to 20, and then I pull the dogs off.
You're a big press guy. I know that.
Yeah.
Press guy. Those 12-year-olds. Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, I think the answer is going to be different for every single person listening.
Yeah.
What takes it to that next level? Because if you don't run or you don't live in the ultra space, call it my wife even, is like, I don't get it. And I think that's totally normal to be like, I don't get it. And then I go sign up for the next race, and I'm just freaking pumped for the next 2-3 months to like train and get my fitness up. And then how well can I do in this course in the middle of Washington State where I've never been? Like, that's just exciting for me.
Yeah, I get it. And, I mean, I think that feeling of, it's a little bit like going through these cases, because I did a triathlon a couple years ago with very little training, and I cramped up.
Yeah.
I've never had, like my quad cramp up. I've had 3 knee surgeries, and there was a point I was like a mile. It was like a 10K, and which wouldn't have been a huge deal. And I actually, it's almost like maybe it's the same feeling as prison, where I said, I have to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have to leave this planet for the next 35 minutes. Otherwise, I'm in freaking too much pain.
I'm not going to make it.
I'm not going to make it. And I think I find it fascinating, people who are able to psychologically take themselves somewhere else. Because otherwise, you're just like, this sucks, and I'm going to quit, and I'm going to call somebody, and then that ruins your evening. But if I do this for the next 35 minutes, then I get to go to Maverick, and I get to eat whatever I want. And the best reason for training is how much you get to eat after.
Yeah.
That is the, go to the Mexican place, have, chips and salsas,
bring it
Diet
all.
Cokes.
Bring it all.
That is, people who do the Lodija, people who do the triathlons. I always think, man, but how is the meal after?
Yeah.
You are hungry.
Yeah. The Ironman, the Lodija, I would say a 50 miler or more. 50K, I don't really put it in that category. It is an ultra. I don't put it in the category of like, dude, you're psycho. I don't put 50K in the psycho category.
50K,
but a 50 miler in the mountains absolutely is like 1 percentile. Like, it's a totally different
I'd love to do it someday.
So how would you answer this?
Well, I want to answer for you, and then I'll do me.
Okay.
You started to go in the direction I thought that you would at the end. Like, why you got into it was all the reasons you said at first. But now you're good at it. And so that I was glad to hear you say the competitive side come out. Because if you were mid and it was just like, you're getting through them, I don't know if you would have that fire. But when you have the training block and the window brainstorming that we're doing on strategy behind it, that fires you up, and then you want to actually go and compete. When you and I raced, and we were racing at Bigfoot 200 when he
Tahoe.
Tahoe. When someone's chasing you down and you have an opportunity to podium a race, and I wasn't even the runner, I was just the pacer.
Yeah.
But it's a whole different experience. Like, you don't even think about the pain you're in. You are literally racing, and it's fun. And I don't get to experience that for myself because I'm like mid pack.
Yeah.
And since you're good at it, I was like, I can see why you want to keep going and experience all these awesome races. And then for me, mine was more of I loved doing the 50Ks. I did a ton of those. And I found that I was on a journey to find the Holy Grail. It was about finding the treasure for me. I needed to finish the 100-miler. It wasn't to compete. It wasn't because I had this love of running. It was literally like, I am on a mission to find the treasure.
To fulfill
I had
whatever.
to.
Yeah.
I couldn't finish on a DNF. I did not finish. I couldn't end my career that way. So I was on a mission to get this done. And I would literally, I couldn't have just ended with never got it done.
Yeah.
I couldn't have ended that way. So they are different.
Yeah. Well,
interesting.
I'll use this opportunity to inform my colleague over here and everyone else. So like a month ago, when I found out I probably wasn't going to go race UTMB. You know what UTMB is? It's like the world finals.
Okay.
Tour de France of trail running.
It's a Super Bowl for trail
running.
running.
That was on SportsCenter the other night, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I totally caught that.
Yep. It's every August in Chamonix, France, and it's
cool. Yeah.
the biggest trail running event in the world. It's the pros Super Bowl. I earned an elite entry bid into that race by winning my age group last October at the North American major. So there's one race in the Americas every year, and if you place in the top 10 or win your age group, automatic entry to the Super Bowl. So I won my age group last October, which was a big deal for us. That was the whole goal of going down there. And that's racing, right? Like, I'm not going to beat the top 5, top 10. I'm not beating
elite.
them.
Yeah, true.
Those dudes are
yeah.
pros.
Right.
But I'm going there for a specific purpose of winning the age group of 45 to 49. So I won my age group and super jacked about it. Anyway, this and that happened, ended up being like, dude, this year is not going to work out. I'm going to go next year. Just defer my entry. I'll go in 2027. So we're building out my race calendar for this summer. And then I realized I don't have what we call a hard rock qualifier. There's a race in Colorado called the Hard Rock 100 endurance run. And it's kind of a big deal. Everybody wants to get in. It takes 10 years to get in. It's a lottery. So you got to race qualified races to get into Hard Rock, just to have a chance at the lottery. I don't have a qualifier. So 3-4 weeks ago, I put in for a lottery in Wyoming for the Wyoming Range 100. And then I got on 3 wait lists. Well, I hit the lottery and got into Wyoming, but the problem is it's 3 weeks after the URAY 100, which is a 40,000 feet of climbing in a 100-miler in the San Juans.
You have to win the lottery to be able to do that.
You're crazy.
Show you how messed up people are.
So anyway,
That's funny.
long story short, I found out over the weekend that I got off the wait list on the Dark Divide 100 in the same Mount St. Helens area of the Bigfoot 200.
Oh.
And it's Labor Day weekend.
Bro, I thought you were going to tell me that you freaking got into UTMB.
I got in for 2027, but I'm in for 2027, not 2026. Still.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Yeah. No, I'm in.
That's
for
awesome.
2027. Yeah, they let me roll it to 27.
You never told me that.
Okay, well, I'm in. So we're going to Chamonix in 27.
Sweet.
So I'm going to bow out of the Wyoming range because it's 3 weeks after URAY. That'll give me 6 weeks recovery from URAY, and then I'll go do the Dark Divide 100.
Oh, yeah.
The middle of nowhere. It literally is like the same country area.
When's
of
that?
Bigfoot. September 4th. So I'll go. So here's my race schedule for you.
Okay.
I got a race next week in Bellingham, Washington.
That Bellingham, Washington. My son goes to Western Washington University. I've been to Bellingham.
I've been there as well.
Yeah.
I didn't know your son goes there.
Yeah. He's actually on a study abroad currently, but he's been going to school up there randomly. He just loves the kind of Northwest. And
is he going to be there next week?
He's in Argentina right now on a study abroad
for like a month or
for like the rest of the time. But
okay.
Yeah, beautiful spot though.
Oh, it's amazing.
Cool spot.
It's been raining every single day. It's 45 degrees.
Yeah.
So I got a 50K up there, and then I race, which I think is the biggest race. It is the race of the year in trail running, the Cocodona 250.
Okay.
In May 4th, I got.
Where's this?
Phoenix to Flagstaff, 250 miler.
Flagstaff, beautiful.
Yeah, goes through Sedona. It's basically goes through the whole state. It's 250 miles. But we got that, and then I got the Uray 100 in July, which is potentially the toughest 100 in the U.S. 41,000 feet of climbing, which is crazy. And then I'll do the Dark Divide. That's a big year.
Big year.
Big year.
Okay.
You're not going to have a ton of free time, Jake.
Well, that's why we do the podcasting, because it just brings in the, all the money on the side.
We better get One Home locked and loaded.
Nice hat, bro.
Thank you. One Home. Do you know what that is?
I think you're going to tell me.
Do you remember? Have you heard of One Solar?
I've heard of One Solar.
One
I was
Solar
around when it was created.
Has been rebranded as One Home because we're doing so much more than solar.
It's like
now.
Smart Home, right? Yeah.
That's
Smart Home Arena?
Smart
Home Arena?
Vivint Smart Home Arena? The
That's
Delta
catchy.
Center.
Energy Solutions. Wait, One
Those are some
Energy
catchy
Solution.
names. Let's just go back.
One Energy Solutions Smart Home.
What? That's the worst name.
How about
of,
that meeting?
Of a facility.
How about,
worst ever.
Can we just go back to a Delta Center?
Yeah,
what are we
we
called
are.
again?
We're back, bro.
No, it is.
No, I know, but like 2
yeah.
years
I was
ago,
with you.
they were probably like,
Oh, yeah, everybody was with you.
yeah, let's go back to Delta
I
Center.
always call it the Delta Center
Right.
for 20 years. I just call it
I still
the
call it
Delta
the
Because
ESA.
it was.
I don't know.
ESA.
That
yeah,
just stuck.
that one stuck.
Energy
for sure.
Solutions Arena.
Ugh. Do you ever go to the Bubble in Bountiful?
Of course.
Absolutely. There was a outdoor swimming pool that
Okay.
they would put a big bubble over it in the wintertime and just put these giant heaters in to keep it inflated. And so,
Speaking of the 80s.
so the rec center down there was called the Bubble.
Right.
Now they don't do that anymore. Now it's like an indoor pool.
Right.
No, I don't
Soft.
care what you say.
Yeah.
It's the freaking bubble.
That's the Bubble.
Okay.
Old.
Since you're a marathoner,
Yeah. One-time marathoner.
that makes you a marathoner.
Yeah.
What year did you run it? What race did you run? And I have to ask what your time was, because that's how we
19
validate you.
1995.
Whoa.
Yeah. Old school.
Wait,
I was
high school?
Yeah, I was just out of high school. LA Marathon.
Oh, my gosh.
LA Marathon. Yeah. And
Yes, dude.
I ran it in. Well, I could probably lie because I don't even know what stats.
They didn't even have
had.
watches or
you
computers
can't-
back then,
Right.
so-
I mean, you'd have to go to like the
You probably ran like a-
microfiche to find this. Let me think.
He's like
The other
230,
20.
238.
It was in the twos, I think. 340?
Okay.
Yeah, 330-ish.
Okay.
Right?
Awesome. You were 18 years old. That's
Correct.
freaking great.
Yes, before my mission.
That's amazing.
I wanted to run a marathon, and since you guys are all, drinking rock stars and training, I will tell you that at the time I played football. I did very little cross country, but I knew that I could just run.
Yeah.
I had decent endurance. So I decided on January 3rd or something like that, when you're kind of doing your New Year's things, hey, I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to go on an LDS mission, but I want to do it. And I looked, I don't know how you looked up stuff back then, right? Like
The paper.
You looked
Dad,
in the
pass the
newspaper.
paper.
That's true.
The paper, and my dad was living down in Southern California at the time, so I figured out that the LA Marathon was like March 4th or something. So I had legit less than 2 months to train. So I went out and ran around the neighborhood a few times.
That's
I think
training.
I ran one or two 10 or 15 milers, but
Yeah.
I don't know, 20, 30 training runs total.
You sound like everyone who runs their first marathon.
And I was a kid, right? And I was strong and young, and I went out, I ran the marathon, like in a decent-ish time.
Yeah, that's great, dude.
I got done, and they have those little podiums, right?
Yeah.
Where they put your medal on you. So I go up to the podium, and my legs, they froze up. Like as soon as I sprinted too. I got to that last, because I was a kid. I'm like, dude, I'm going to sprint this.
Sprint the last 100 meters.
So I wanted to pass all these, old dogs, right? So I remember it was right next to where the old course was the Coliseum. So, the football stadium, and there's like the old sports arena where the Clippers played. So it was in that park next to the LA Coliseum where I finished. I sprinted. I was like, I'm a badass. And then I went up on the 2-foot little podium, and I couldn't get off of it. I had to ask the girl there to like help me get down.
Yeah.
My legs were that sore.
Yeah.
And for the next like week, I could barely walk.
Dude,
that was my training regimen in the mid 90s as a kid.
First of all, I can't believe you ran a marathon I didn't know. Second of all, I can't believe it was the LA Marathon.
LA Marathon.
The LA Marathon just happened.
Yeah.
This weekend.
That's right.
And this is why I'm bringing this up. This is going to be freaking great. You'll be able to chime in.
Okay.
Speaking of your medal, okay, participants in the 2026 LA Marathon have the option to only run 18 miles
Oh, I have thoughts on this.
and still receive a finisher's medal. The race officials announced it before the race. Why? Well, because it's supposed to get, upper 70s, low 80s
Oof, brutal.
by finishing time. It's a little warm.
What?
For the Los Angelans. So they're like, it's going to get a little warm. So if you want to just quit at mile 18, you can. You'll still get your finisher's medal, okay?
Get the hell out of here. I heard about this. I didn't know it was because it was a little warm.
Yeah, I'll read it. Organizers project a warm, sunny day across the point-to-point course from Dodger Stadium to Century City, with temperatures starting in the mid-50s around 7 a.m. It's freaking great temperature.
Yeah, perfect.
And climbing into the mid to upper 70s by midday with a high in the low 80s. So a high in the low 80s means what? 2, 3, 4 o'clock? Everyone's done with the race.
Right.
No one is finishing in the 80 degrees. And guess what, everyone? There's a freaking aid station every other mile like every other marathon.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're really that, throw a pack on. I'm shocked. And then when I see people come to the defense of just be happy that they went out and did it.
You can.
Hey, good for them. Good for them.
Totally can be.
Good
They
for
didn't
them.
run a marathon.
They burned a lot of calories, though.
Yeah.
18
great.
miles, that's a good run.
That's
Good run.
Yeah,
So-
it's a great run. 18 miles, a great run.
Look, I'm not like you guys, right? But the only thing I remember about that marathon were miles 19 to 26.
That is
Honest
the race.
Was how much that sucked. Everything, I was dancing. There were bands. I had energy, and then I hit mile 19.
Bro, people
and those last 7 miles,
Yes.
I was like, I still have to run over a 10K. And I didn't carbo load or the pasta, or, this was
whatever that
low
was.
carbs days, right? Like, I didn't really do that last night. I feel awful. So
This is before gels.
18
You're hitting Gatorade.
yeah, no, I had like
people
cotton T-shirt on 18 through 26.
Yep.
Absolutely suck. It's the worst part. It's where you run out of your electrolytes or carbohydrates or whatever. It's a thing.
People
And
have
so-
said for 100 years in a marathon, the race starts at 18. The marathon starts at mile 18. First marathon I ever did, started cramping bad
right.
at 18. I wanted to die. I
Blister,
crossed
the
the finish
blisters
line.
come.
I crossed the finish line in 2005, my first marathon.
Yeah.
Swore up and down I would never, ever, ever do that again. That sucked because
Smart man.
mile 18 to the finish.
Yeah. Why do you think I
I'm
never
running
did another
6-minute miles for 18 miles. Like, this is easy. I'm going to Boston qualify my first marathon ever. And then I just hit a truck and I wanted to die. And I'm like, cool.
It's a thing.
So these guys, what are you going to do with that medal anyway?
They're going to have a good day in LA, man. They're going to feel good. 18
What-
miles.
What are you going to do? I would not let my kid take that medal.
I earned this.
I want to know how many people, now that the race has happened, how many people actually dropped out between 18 and 26.2. And how many actually went and were like, hey, race organizer, I pulled myself out and then I hopped on this e-bike and I rolled over here because it was 71 degrees cooking.
More than you think.
And they went and got their
more
medal.
Than you think.
So I'm guessing the LA Marathon has what, 20,000 runners, 40,000 runners. I don't know.
It's a huge race.
It rained at our race. We owe a lot of people a medal.
Come by the One Home building in Farmington. Get your medal from the 2025 running of DC Peaks. Is this
That's messed up.
So what causes this movement? Because is it we want everyone to feel good? Is it the kids that grew up where everyone gets a medal? Is that who's running these things now? And we're just old dudes that grew up in the 90s and we're kind of more hard ass. We're not like understanding or because there were a lot of comments that were like, stop talking about the medals already. Like, just be nice and be happy that they went out there and did it. Like, I'm like, jeez.
You know who you can blame.
That part can be true.
It can be true. You can still be happy for them. They didn't run a marathon.
Nope.
Sign up for the half marathon.
Just because they want to say something out loud doesn't change reality. Guys don't get pregnant just because you say they can. This is not a marathon. This is why people don't like us on this podcast, damn it. Jake, why do you do this?
This is a great topic, Nick.
You know who's behind this?
Who?
The lawyers.
Of course.
Of course.
The
This is
lawyers.
the lawyers, man. They're like, this is going to be dangerous. Somebody'll die. If you get above 78 degrees, you will get someone. Statistically, there's safety, whatever. I'm guessing that they looked at it because in LA, we all know that in Southern California, I went to law school in San Diego, and I remember if it got above like 78, people were dying with how hot it was. And if it got below like 58,
it has to stay
so
in that range to be in Southern
like
Orange
they're not
County.
used to it.
So they're going to sue?
Well, no. Or what if somebody? What if someone has
freezing.
a health
I can't
issue?
make it to work today.
And this is how I think of everything in life. Like, okay, well, did you know? Yes, you knew that it was. So, what reasonable accommodations did you make to ensure that they weren't running? What if you got somebody who's like really in bad shape and they have health issues, but they still run and it's in the low 80s and they're what, 8 hours, whatever the cutoff is, and then I believe that they probably made a decision and then they said, just give them their medals, so we don't have an outcry. I think there's some kind of like safety reasons behind it, which is why you guys do what you do, because, there's a certain category of people, they go ski the ski resorts enough and they're like, I don't need to ski in these ski resorts. I'm going to go do backcountry and I'm going to go take it another level because I don't like all of the restrictions and the regulations and the crowds and whatever else. So I'm guessing that, your folks are looking at this saying, well, this is why we go out and climb 40,000 feet and we have to win a lottery to do it because we don't want to do. And what I think we're seeing as we get older, like, is the masses, everything, load adjust, it sells out. So you get these real extreme athletes especially, and they're like, we used to do that, but now we're going to go out and create our own. We're going to have our own, we got private ski resorts. We've got, it's just the masses are becoming so, like, it's just so big and there's so many people doing it that eventually you get into, well, I'm going to go run, 200 miles up the side of and you guys probably don't deal with as much of the same restrictions because you're just a different breed, and this is different. It's changed.
Hey, man, I've been saying it for a long time. Lawyers, they ruin the world we live in. Your people, they destroy the English language.
Mm-hmm.
They destroy, these types of things. And you're probably right.
Yeah. And I sleep like a baby.
Yeah, bro, you
every
sleep
night.
great.
You hate lawyers. How is this even happening?
You invited me, bro.
I hate lawyers. And one of my best friends is a lawyer. Eric is one of my dopest friends in the last 20 years. My father-in-law is a lawyer, but I tell my father-in-law, I still hate you, bro.
Oh my God.
What if you had to deal with them all day long?
Yeah.
Think about my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to deal with other lawyers.
Oh, well, you're probably right. This was like an insurance thing.
I hate you, bro. Rob, we love you, man.
Rob's the GOAT, dude. Eric knows Rob
Oh yeah,
really well, actually.
Rob Dog. Yeah.
Yeah, Rob Dog. But yeah, they're lawyers, man. And you're probably right. This was like, hey, you guys just need to put this out there. And if just give them an out. It's going to be a little warm. If you want to quit after 18 when it gets over 70, cool. And we'll give you a medal. It'll save you a lot of heartache if someone goes down and something happens.
Right. Reasonable accommodation.
And you're like, this is a $20 million event, probably. Just put it out there.
Yeah.
Who cares?
What would you say as the race director? If you're a lawyer,
Kiss my ass.
you
No.
would.
I'd be
I'll
like, no.
say-
I bet they can drop out. They're not getting a medal.
I'll say, listen, no one will care except some random guys on a podcast somewhere. Like some trail running dudes are going to complain about it. But otherwise, it's going to be a great solution, and they're going to save you some serious liability.
But doesn't the waiver cover that?
I don't know what the waiver is, but and again, I don't know what happened, but maybe the waiver is, the waiver is only as good as the paper that it's written on. So if they knew that it was going to be higher temperature and have conditions that were more dangerous, whether you signed a waiver or not, I can just see that happening.
Wait, hang on.
This is all speculation.
You've heard about our race. DC Peak?
Yeah.
Have you? Did you hear about what happened the first year?
I'm guessing it wasn't good.
Bro, I was on CNN.
Okay.
Snowed.
This time.
Oh, yeah.
Snowed.
Yeah,
heard about
I was
this.
going
Okay.
PTSD.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm on the news again. Here comes KSL.
Yeah, I saw this. Yeah.
Okay.
It
Mhm.
was crazy weather.
Right.
It was worse than the weather reports showed. So the runners go up. It's a nightmare up there. We have to cancel the race. We go up, give everybody rides down. But they signed waivers saying, like, this is a mountain race and weather can hit and whatever. But you're saying that is on us?
I don't know.
Not necessarily what you believe, but like from a legal standpoint.
Yeah, but yours is a different kind of a race, right? I mean, you're attracting a different caliber of person, a person that understands this is an extreme, and that you don't even show up unless you're a sophisticated investor, right? You're an accredited investor of racing, right? This isn't. I think I'll train for a marathon that's 20,000 people are in it, and it's on city streets, and so I could just see. I don't know how many people sign up for these crazy races.
87 that first year.
Yeah, 87. I did the Grandeur Peak Fun Run one year, and there was nothing fun about it. And it was the same kind of people. You go up the face of Grandeur, and I was last place doesn't even do it justice. Like, I was watching people, and I'm like, you can't even run up this. But it was, 50 people, and it was an elite category of folks that aren't going out to go do the Days of 47 or just a typical race, 10K. It's people that, understand this is extreme. So I think your situation's a little different. And if I go and I sign up for that, I know that I might be in a tight spot because I'm doing a very extreme thing. I don't know about this.
You'll get to experience it when we lock you in.
Yeah, we'll
someday.
lock you in.
This is the first step. Come on the podcast.
So, from a legal standpoint, you signed a waiver, you paid your fee, you know what you're getting into. 26.2 on the smooth roads and the 70
Sounds amazing.
temps of LA.
It
But
might be mid-80s.
God
in LA.
forbid it gets upper 70s. Right. And I gotta I can't get to the next aid station. It's half a mile away.
Right?
Like, there's
You're giving
no
a good
way.
closing argument.
You could
I
just
should
drop
record
out.
this. Yeah.
This is crazy. I'm running past like Mavericks, and I could just douse myself in water and ice. And
No Mavericks in LA, bro. The
Oh.
convenience stores in California.
Like
California's got us on a lot of things, not convenience stores.
Exxon Mobil. It's right there.
Chevron with like,
Oh, I can't. I gotta dip. But if you put this disclaimer out, so you sign a waiver and they pay, and they fully are like at their own risk entering this super extreme.
you're just doing this for sport. Now.
5
now
hour
this is
run.
just for sport. The guy's not competitive. Yeah.
Then, just in case, 5 days before the event, let's put this out. hey, by the way, it's going to be a tad bit warm. If you want to drop, you totally can, and we'll give you a medal. Let's say someone doesn't drop at mile 20, or they drop and have a heat stroke at mile 17.
Yeah.
Now what is the vulture eating lawyers thinking? Like, I'm going after the LA Marathon because my runner wasn't safe. Are they still like, they signed a waiver, we told them they could drop? Like, is there... There's always a lawyer who will take a case and go after somebody.
Correct.
So does this do anything legally? Like, you're saying your guess was this is a legal thing.
This is my guess. I don't know, but does it do anything? It's just one more protection that you've added. So if someone in California who can be quite aggressive,
yeah,
the attorneys in LA, I happen to know. So it's one more thing. I don't know if a lawyer did this or it was just someone who felt bad. But it feels like there was maybe a higher chance of liability. I mean, what I'm doing now, and Jake, we've talked about this, I did this criminal defense stuff, but I also sue power companies out in California for starting wildfires. And so I guess I look at these things like, hey, if it's going to be, and this is more extreme, if there's 80-mile-an-hour winds coming through LA and you know about them, then you need to maybe do some things other than say, well, I hope it doesn't cause a fire. And if it does cause a fire, whether you didn't want a fire to happen, but you have lines that are 50, 60 years old, that have equipment that's kind of out of date, and you leave those energized, and there's 80-mile-an-hour winds, if it causes a fire, man, you tried to do everything you could otherwise, and people get really mad when you turn off the power. People go on podcasts and say, why do they keep turning off my power and why are my bills so much? You still turn off the power. Because if you don't, you get January 7th, Altadena, Pasadena, you get a massive fire that 10,000 homes were destroyed.
Wipes out
in
neighborhoods.
Pasadena. And it was 6 hours after the Palisades fire. So there's fires all over. And so we're dealing with that a lot. But so I think of, why didn't they just turn off the power? Now, is this the same situation? No. But, Edison down there, they know that as soon as that fire hits, there's going to be, 100,000 cases brought, right, by plaintiffs' attorneys in California because the laws are very plaintiff-friendly. And so I always look at it that way. I don't know if that's what drove this decision, but if California is dealing with a lot of environmental issues as far as temperatures, fires, it's just crazy. And so I think folks down there are always thinking, okay, what could go wrong because of the weather or because of, conditions? Because, man, I read the LA Times every day and there's always something, with fires or weather. Weather's a big deal down there.
Super.
So don't put these runners in danger.
Can you imagine being in that board meeting? If it wasn't a legal thing, if they're just like, it's going to be hot. Let's not worry about the metal so much. Like, can you imagine being part of that?
No, I would lose my mind.
Yes, you would.
I'm kind of losing it here. And this is not even my race, and I don't even care about marathons. I couldn't. This, like, Runner's World magazine put this out.
Yeah.
Like, that was a big announcement. It wasn't just like, oh,
were they troubled? Was Runner's World troubled? Or were they like, this is great?
They do their job as a media outlet. They just post the news and let the comments go freaking crazy.
Yeah.
When I screenshotted this almost a week ago, I had 1,000 comments and 5,000 shares. It's probably 10x to that this week.
Well, that's a good job on their part. That's how you should do it.
Oh yeah, if you're a news outlet, you just
tell
say
us
it.
Let people. Yeah.
We don't like to do that here. We like to read the news and react. So,
and tell you how you should think.
Yeah, you idiots. You should be thinking like this. I don't know. If I'm in that boardroom, I'd be like, cool. Yeah, just let them know it's going to be warm. And if they want to drop, go ahead and drop. The half marathon's full, so we can't drop you down to the half because there was a half marathon and
Give
a
them the
marathon.
half marathon plus a little something medal.
That would be fine because they
Yeah.
actually
They actually completed the half
13.1
marathon.
miles.
They should get the half marathon medal.
Because they ran.
I ran the LA Marathon, all 19 miles. Crushed it.
Yeah.
I got on my Lime scooter and rode to the finish line to get my medal.
Good for them.
Great.
Come on, Jake. Good for them.
All right.
Who are you more upset with? The people that made this decision. Let's assume that it wasn't legal, because that's applying some pressure. Let's
Okay.
assume it was just feel good.
Feel gooders.
Feel good, or the people that accept the medal. They ran 18 miles and accept
If it wasn't legal,
yeah,
the
let's assume
other
it was.
hypothetical could have been they might have got a bunch of messages, emails or otherwise, from runners. Hey, I noticed the weather. It's going to be warm. We dealt with this as race directors 2 out of our 5 years. We start getting emails from our runners. Hey, it's going to be cold. Hey, it's going to be rainy. Hey, this. And we're like, cool. Throw a coat on.
Yeah.
We'll reroute it.
Right.
We'll adapt. We'll do what we can as RDs. Maybe they got a bunch of pressure from runners. Hey, I plan on running this thing in 6 hours, and from start time at 7 a.m., I'm going to be finishing at 1 o'clock. It's supposed to be 79 degrees. What are my options, Mr. Race Director of the LA Marathon?
Don't run one in Southern California.
Run faster and be done before 1?
Go to Minnesota.
How about this? Have you ever seen topical cooling methods running?
Yeah.
Like maybe throw some water on you at the aid station.
Stay hydrated.
Wear an ice bandana.
Yeah, stay hydrated.
Drink some water.
Right. Drink a Rockstar.
Hit a Rockstar.
Maybe a couple Celsius.
And then someone else raised their hand and was like, about that email you got, John. How about this? Let's just let him quit early and give him a medal.
Let's go with it.
I don't know, dude.
I love it. Great idea.
I don't know.
And we don't have to listen to him anymore.
Okay. While we're on Orange County, Southern California,
Yes.
good friend of the show, Sally McRae. Big name in the trail running space.
Okay.
250,000 followers. One of the OG trail runners that kind of helped build the sport with her following. She was with Nike for 12 years.
Okay.
Nike Trail and Nike Running. No longer with Nike. She just announced that this week. Now she's testing out various shoes socially. Like, hey, try this, try that. What other shoes should I run in? What else should I do? Found that approach interesting, Mick.
What's your take there, Jake?
That's it, man. Just found it super interesting. What do you think, Mick?
Do you think that Nike dropped her, or do you think she really wants to try a new shoe out?
So Nike Trail
Yeah.
became ACG. So
All conditions gear.
So there was ACG and there was Nike Trail. And this few months ago they merged
Okay.
and basically got rid of Nike Trail. It's now ACG.
ACG's old school too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dope, dude. It's rad.
Air Deschutes or whatever back in the 90s.
Yes.
ACG.
Yes, we had ACGs, dude, in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So ACG is making a huge push in trail. Like they're dumping money, like prize money, and they've signed big athletes. I think it's probably a combination of ACG making moves and saying, hey, we're no longer Nike Trail. We're going to build our own athlete roster. And it looks like this. You got to be top tier, winning big races type, Hoka type stuff.
Right.
And then Sally, notably, is on the tail end of her career.
Mm.
Her best days are behind her, which is not a knock. It just is. You get older and your best days are behind you. Sally's done amazing things in the sport. Amazing things. But after 12 years with Nike, I mean, to me, Nike is the pinnacle of almost every sport.
Yeah.
At every level. High school, college, NFL, NBA, Major League.
Right.
We're
all wearing them.
Look at us.
in the studio.
We're all rocking Nikes.
I have the original Air Max
dude.
1s.
Those are the Air Max 1s?
These are the ones. I think my dad wore these in the New York Marathon in
wow.
86, 87. Yeah, these are the
Really?
original. These are old school. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And I wear these. The question I have, though, does Nike make good running shoes?
Yes.
They do?
Yes.
You sure about that?
I'm very confident.
They make amazing hangout shoes. I got the Jordans. I got
Jordan
the Air
ones?
Max. I've got, I love, now
Okay.
that I don't have to wear a suit every day, I love, kicking it. I don't know if they still say that.
Yeah,
Kicking it
we
shoes.
do.
But yeah, we're Unk here, right?
We're Unk. I'll say
So-
this, bro. Their ACG brand, they've just signed some of the best athletes in trail in the last 90 days. They sent me a pair of shoes. They call them a super shoe, where it's got a carbon plate in them.
Mm.
So that's also in the road space now. The number of brands that will create like a big foam, soft sole with a carbon plate in them they call it a super shoe. So Nike sent me a pair, and it's called the Ultra Fly. I've been wearing them this week.
You like them?
This is my first time ever wearing them. I'm a big Hoka trail running guy.
Right.
I've been wearing Nikes for the last 9 months.
Hmm.
But the Ultra Fly, very expensive shoe, high class, like $260, dude.
Wow.
I would never
Gotta
buy
have a
them.
solar company.
Yeah,
buy
I
that
mean, I
kinda
can't.
shoe.
I'm on that solar budget. I'm on that next aid station money.
One home, dog.
Yeah, I can't afford them. Next aid station's AdSense isn't quite there yet. But they sent me a pair.
Yeah.
And so I've been wearing them the last 3 runs. I've ran 3 days in a row in them, 25, 30 miles, whatever. It's 5-6 hours. Love them. They're freaking rad, dude. And
Better
I'll tell
than the
you,
On Clouds.
what's that?
On Cloud.
I haven't worn them before.
Dude, try them on.
Okay.
I mean,
Are you
I'm
saying-
not running 500 miles, but the On Cloud, and I'm a big Nike guy. I've worn Nikes, for 45 years.
Your whole life.
I bought Air Jordans when
Yep.
he was a rookie.
Yep.
I went to the Fashion Place Mall. But those On
Foot Locker.
Clouds, man, the Foot Locker, put my $39 down for my first pair of Sky Jordans.
Put 'em down.
Mowing lawns, just counted pennies out.
Yeah.
On Clouds.
Yeah, there's a lot of great shoes
I
out
have
there
feet
now.
issues, so yeah, I like the On Clouds. But
So, anyway, I found that interesting. I was shocked that she was no longer with Nike. I mean, her thing is like yellow runner. She's famous for this like yellow Nike hat,
right.
and so her Instagram is yellow runner, and she has a yellow Nike hat.
Lance Armstrong-esque.
Yes,
Yeah.
very, very,
Okay.
very much that. They built the whole trail running brand around her a decade ago, much like Lance and Live Strong.
Yeah.
Like her, if she's in a live stream chat, people are dropping yellow hearts in the chat.
Sounds like she needs to come on the show.
Be great. We got yellow rock stars for you, Sally.
Is she changing her tag
I don't know.
like Mike McKnight did?
I mean,
Like Killian did?
if I was advising her, yeah, it should just be Sally McRae.
Maybe she should do like the Utes and just do Under Armour. Just get all Under Armour.
Yeah, see, there's a move there.
There's a logical decision. Go from Nike and then all
There's
of
a
a sudden
move
they've
there.
got Under Armour
She-
on. And does
yeah.
anybody wear Under Armour basketball shoes? Apparently
Steph
the
Curry.
University, apparently
Under
the
Armour's
University
cool.
of Utah does.
Steph did. Yeah. No, Sally is super loved in the trail community.
You get a big enough check, I think you
So.
wear whatever.
We'll see where she goes. There's also, just like anyone else, I'm sure there's some people that don't love what she does or who she is, but for the most part,
Yeah.
very, very, very large following. Podcast, book, Instagram, results on trails. She's done well, but I found it interesting and shocking that Nike
interesting.
dropped it. I want to touch on one more thing because I hit you up on it.
Yeah.
Chanty Bilips. We got legal consulting in here. So Eric has been on like Spence Checkett's show a number of times. He'll go over legal cases of professional
I was their
athletes.
legal expert. I mean, I just so you guys.
That's
That's
right.
the
Straight,
that's
yeah.
the
What happened? Why
local ESPN.
They
Radio, in case you're
they were like Nike with Sally. They just one day, it was done.
It was over.
It was over.
It was over.
Yo, Spence, and he said, "Sorry, we're going a different direction." So, no, I appeared on. I've done a few of these things. I like to talk about law and sports. That's about it.
We're here for it.
That's about all I got. But
That's
those two subjects, yeah.
That is this episode. Well, Chanty Bilips is kind of in some heat at the moment.
Yes,
sports,
the position,
sports betting, gambling, underground. What is that dude up against right now?
Well, I'm going to ask you, Jake. Why on earth would it sounds like he was part of illegal poker games or rigged poker games, which I think they're in Vegas and Manhattan and Florida. Why on earth is he in federal court in Brooklyn? Why would they bring a case in Brooklyn in the Eastern District of New York? And why doesn't he get prosecuted in Clark County, down in Vegas, in Florida? Why are they doing a case in Brooklyn?
That's a great question. You would know. I do not know.
So the feds, like I said, have very broad jurisdiction. And the key to their cases, I don't know if you agree with this, but I think where the feds really have an advantage, maybe even over some state laws, is conspiracy. They have broad conspiracy laws, and those were used to bring down a lot of the crime families. And the Eastern District of New York, which is in Brooklyn, the Southern District of New York, which is in Manhattan, but they're kind of sister districts and a bit of rivals, actually. And the Southern District really takes the lead on a lot of these international financial cases, securities and markets. And the Eastern District historically has done a lot of the, maybe the penny stocks and a ton of the organized crime, like we were talking about earlier. So this is a case, and I don't know a ton about the case other than Jake asked me to look into it a little bit, and we all have chat, that there are organized crime kind of underpinnings in this case, that a couple of individuals with ties to organized crime had set up these high stakes poker games. You get the rich guy to show up at some private poker night, and hey, who's going to be there? Chanty Bilips. Remember him?
Yeah.
He was in the finals back in like 2004. He's going to gamble next to you. He's just a regular dude. And I think the allegations are that Chauncey came in and he would go big or whatever. He would double down, and the games were all rigged, allegedly. And so Bilips was getting kickbacks from being part of these games, and you got these suckers who come in and they're betting a lot of money and they're all going to lose, right? And so where I think Chauncey is in trouble, based on the allegations that I've seen, is that he was getting payments, and the feds don't like that. When they see you getting money for something like this and it's going through a nominee, which is another, I think there's this random woman in Brooklyn who was receiving some of the proceeds of these gambling games. She was then sending it to Chauncey, so they were using kind of these additional accounts, which will usually get you on the hook for a money laundering charge. I think he does have, so you're seeing like wire fraud, money laundering, which are the classic federal crimes that they use in everything, but they're doing it because they were rigged poker games and they were throughout the country, so they have jurisdiction when it crosses state lines, is what they like to say. And so Chauncey, who I believe was living in Oregon as the coach of the Blazers, I think he played at Boulder, University of Colorado, so he lives in Denver in the offseason.
I think he's from Denver.
From Denver.
Yeah. I think he graduated high school the same year. He was like top 5 or top 10 coming out of high school, I think, my same year.
Right. And he chose to go to University of Colorado and then ended up with obviously a great career. But, he's not from New York, but he'd go out and appear at some of these things with some of these shadier figures and make some money on the side. I have no idea if the charges are righteous, if they're good charges, if he's in big trouble or not. But kind of to go back to Jake's, his little empire that he's running, and I don't mean the races or the solar. I mean his basketball team, where he's training them like the Cobra Kai or something. And it's almost like if you could pick what teams you play, and you're like, we're going to play like the lowest level junior jazz team. Jake's got, they're good ball players. They're comp, you got a great team. If you said, okay, now we're going to go out and we're going to schedule our games and we're going to find the, Woods Cross or Farmington, like junior jazz 9-year-olds, And those are going to be our season because we want to go, 30-0 or something this year. The federal government, I feel like it operates that way a little bit because we get the case. When I was in AUSA, it's not like, okay, let's get the case. Who we playing this week? It's let's get the case. Is it perfect? No. Let's make it perfect. If it's not perfect, we're not going to bring it. If it's perfect, or if it's not perfect, let's go out and talk to witnesses and get 20 more witnesses. So by the time that case comes, you do have the equivalent of some highly trained basketball team going up against somebody who's picked up a basketball for the first time in their life. And so when I see these, I think, man, they've probably been working on this for many years. And it's not like, oh, we just aiming at a bullseye, aiming at a dartboard here, and maybe we make it work. They have, witnesses locked in. They've done search warrants. So they usually do have a lot of evidence when they come to this point. I don't know what Chauncey's role is, but it usually is, a pretty big deal.
They're claiming marked cards, hidden cameras, manipulated shuffling machines to shuffle the cards. Allegedly doesn't look great, right?
Yeah, and the important thing is Chauncey, he may not have known about 90% of this. He knew about one little part of the conspiracy, and so he's in for a penny, in for a pound. So if he knew about any of it and he said, hey, this is a little shady, I don't know exactly what they're doing, but don't send money to my Wells Fargo account or something. Send it to this lady who's in on it, and then she'll send it to me. That may be his undoing. Just knowing that this money isn't completely legit and making efforts to disguise it, that's not going to look great in front of a jury, based on what I've seen. But I don't know his involvement in the scheme.
Wow. He was the head coach of the Trailblazers when this broke, and then he had to step down last year, 2025.
That's right. Fall. That's right.
Was it the start of this season?
I don't know. It's been like 9 months, I want to say, and I think they have a trial date on the case that's set for. I think they set it for like within the next year.
Yeah, it says expected later in 2026 if no deal has happened between now and then.
Yeah, and as a defendant, what do I always say, Jake? I've never met a delay I didn't like.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
The client hates it.
Delay.
The client hates it, but the case gets worse. People leave the office. Witnesses, they lose their memories. So if you're on the defense side, delay.
Is this a type of case that you would enjoy being on, or you're like, I don't want to do white collar defense anymore, even if it was a high profile something like this? Someone calls you, Spence calls you and is like, dude, Chauncey's lawyer called. Yeah. They want someone else. You want to take the case?
I'm in. I mean, this is my thing. This is what I really grew up doing. And I like the mass tort work that I'm doing and the plaintiff's work, but I know this stuff. I love the rules of evidence, the federal system. As you know, I'll talk about it forever. I love it. I do. The part of it that's challenging, your case especially, is when you get close to your clients, then you're going through this with them, and that's emotionally exhausting. You went through it, and I don't claim to go through the same thing that my clients do, but if you do it 100 times, it weighs on you, and they have all the power, and so it's very hard. You have clients texting you at midnight, and saying, "What about this?" And you're kind of like, "Hey, leave me alone." You have to establish boundaries. So that is a hard part. I think that I watched the Diddy kind of proceedings, who, by the way, I thought was completely overcharged for whatever he was doing. I thought that was an overreach. So I watched these things, and I think that'd be fun to be a part of. But I know the clients can be hard, especially high-profile ones, and they don't understand what I understand. They just want to. They're competitive, and so I think it would be a very challenging. I see some of these guys in New York. Diddy's attorney. He did some work out here, and I met him. He was an amazing attorney, but they have to deal with a lot of stress.
So you mentioned the boundaries. You and I didn't seem to have boundaries, bro. We were texting and talking at 1, 2 a.m. Dude, I just read this. I just thought of this.
Right.
What makes that different for you? Just because we were similar ages, we were kind of similar personality-wise, like we just became friends. Like some cases, you don't do that.
Yeah, and I think after your case, I because it was so upsetting for me, frankly, your case was upsetting, and I knew what we were running into, but you became a friend. I got to know your family. So it weighed on me to where I was like, I need to make some rules on how much I'll interact with clients. Yeah, we were similar age. We had a ton of friends in common. I mean, you had people that worked at your company that were close friends of mine, and so I think our connection was pretty quick. I'd also been out of the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I was like, oh, I want to get on a case with someone who's like a good person, and I can help. And most people that are defendants are just bad, and they're, so with you, I was like, no, this is a real person, and like I could be in this situation. Anybody could be in your situation. It wasn't, like a massive Ponzi scheme where you were just doing these things that, okay, well, that's obvious fraud. So I was very, sympathetic to what you were going through. I understood exactly what was going on. I get sales. And so we became close. But at the end of the day, my job is like, I'm like a cancer doctor, right? Like an oncologist or somebody. Say, listen, here's what you're up against. Here are the options. And there's some bad, I have to give bad news. And so if I'm giving that bad news, I do need to be a little more objective and neutral and not emotional, because the government did some things in your case that pissed you off, but it pissed me off too. I mean, I was personally upset, not sleeping, thinking about it, mowing the lawn on Saturday, not thinking about, why does Utah suck this week? I was thinking about Jake's case. I was mad. I was, so I think that it is incredibly, if you don't establish boundaries and realize, at the end of the day, this is what I do for a living, I don't know that you'll last, because emotionally it's very hard.
What was one or two of those things that you were thinking about, like that pissed you off, that made you mad, that you were like, this isn't right the way that this is going down?
Yeah, and I don't know how much you've shared with your listeners, but the government,
very little.
So yeah, we were in the middle of. So I think I said earlier that I am very strict on confidentiality, and anything that I say to you is confidential. And as a prosecutor, I knew that, and I knew that anything that a defense attorney says to his client, whether it helps my case or not, I don't get to know about that. And there's very strict rules, and it can jeopardize your case. So about halfway through your case, I think we were up in the war room you've talked about, and we've been going back and forth, and I get a call from my paralegal, and she says, hey, I'm looking for some information to help Jake out. We're going through all the emails, and I saw something that's really weird. I said, okay. She's like, you're going to need to come to my office to check this out. And I thought, oh no, what did I do? Did I mess up the case? And so I go, and I see a number of emails from my law firm that I sent from my attorney business account to Jake, discussing strategy. What witnesses should we call? No, I don't think that guy will be good. This guy will be better. Yeah, let's stay away from this, real strategy, not like, hey, show up at my office at 10. Like, these are substantive emails. And I looked at the bottom, and there's a system called Bates numbering where you number everything that we get from the government and what's known as discovery. They're sending me the file. Now, the file should be all of Jake's emails with his employees when he worked at Orbit, anything that they got in the search warrant, everything historical. I'm going to get all of that. The government's going to put a little number on the side of it, this Bates number, and it will say like government 1, government 2, and it can be thousands of pages. Well, I see government 2244, and it's my email to Jake. And I hit the roof. And at first I thought, oh no, I sent the government something, there's strict rules. I sent all of my privileged communications to the government.
You're like, that's my bad.
Accidentally. I'm going to be disbarred. Like, that's my bad. I was for like 2 hours freaking out. We were trying to figure it out. Well, as it turns out, they had obtained a search warrant for all of Jake's emails when they knew I was representing him, and they got all of his emails. And in the affidavit for the search warrant, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, they said, we understand he's represented by counsel. Here are the names of his lawyers. Don't look at any of this, and make sure you have a specialized procedure to take all of that stuff and remove it. This is to all the FBI agents who are getting, because you send a search warrant application from the FBI to Google, they send that back like that. They're like, here you go. We're not going to ask any questions. This is from the FBI. So they send back access to all of your Gmail or whatever it was account, and it had hundreds of emails with me and other attorneys and my investigator on the team talking about case strategy, and those were all in their file. and they made no effort to set those aside, to isolate those, and my position was, well, you've looked at all of them. And they said, how could you say that? We didn't look at any of them. And I don't know, to this day, I don't know if that's true, but I said, how am I supposed to tell my client, Jake, who is already being pursued by you, he's going through this, his family's going through hell. How am I supposed to tell him, don't worry about it? The FBI agents and some of the prosecution team says they've never looked at it, despite the fact that someone in your office put a label on it. So you don't look at any of your discovery? I was like so mad. We had a meeting after hours with the prosecutor on the case. We confronted him with it, and he said, go for it. I don't care. We're fine. We didn't do anything wrong. And so the attitude, when I was at the office, I used to be on teams. They were called taint teams, where my job, and I wasn't affiliated with the case, was to look at stuff like this and put it in the box that you can't see. And I'm like, you guys didn't do any of that. And they said, we don't care. And so, yes, we ended up kind of resolving the case for other reasons, but, that was a big thing. And Jake knows I'd only been out of the office for a year or two, still had incredibly close friends in the office, including the U.S. attorney. We filed our motion to we filed a motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct, which they didn't like, and then a motion to disqualify the District of Utah from even working on the case because they're essentially tainted. That drew about 40 prosecutors, including the U.S. attorney himself, to show up at the hearing and glare at me. And anyway, it was, but that's, now that's, you got to fight for your client, right? And I would have, people say, why'd you do that? And how could you do this? And I said, I'd do it 100 times more. Like I can't imagine not doing it.
Why do they question you? Like, why did you file those claims to dismiss or claims for prosecutorial misconduct? Why aren't they posing the question to the other side? Why didn't you guys use the taint team? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and I think maybe it's just our nature here in like the state of Utah, as opposed to back in New York, where this stuff, they accuse people of things. They say the F word a lot more. It's just more normal. I basically was impugning their character. I was saying, you did something that you shouldn't have, and you guys need to be thrown off of the case. And they took that as a personal ad hominem attack on them. And I got a personal phone call saying, you can't do this, Eric. These are good people. And I said, I don't care if they're good people or not. What they did was wrong, and they need to follow the process. And I think that, the one thing that I'll say about this is I was struggling with it because I'm like, am I just being a jerk? And I called up my uncle, who wasn't involved in the case, and he was a sitting federal judge at the time. And I remember I asked him about it after everything had, he's passed away since, so I think I can share this. But I said, D, everybody's telling me I'm a terrible person. They're saying, how could I do this? And how
for bringing it up?
Yeah, for bringing this up. Or all my old colleagues are saying this is below the belt. And he said, Eric, I don't know how you could not do this. You have to do this. I don't know if you'll win, and I don't know if the system is what it is, and they'll say that we didn't look at it, and that's another thing. But if you didn't do this, you would be committing malpractice. And so from that, and I cared a lot about my uncle and his opinion, and he was I think a pretty trusted judge in the legal community. But he told me, no, Eric, what you did was absolutely right, and you need to fight for Jake. So, once I heard that, I was, and I
this is, if I remember right on the timing, this was like right before trial.
Yeah,
no?
It was because we were prepping,
before.
And Jake wanted to go, and I was like, let's go try
we're going
this
to freaking
thing.
trial, dude.
Yeah, we were very close to going to trial, and hopefully you don't mind me saying this. The hard thing is when the government gets to 30 witnesses and say, you need to say this, or you guys will be charged. Those 30 witnesses are going to say what they want them to say. And here, like Jake, you were running the company, and a lot of stuff was going on, right? Mm-hmm. That whether you knew about it or not, it was on your watch. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really the takeaway from the case.
Yeah, I was the VP of sales. We had a CEO. We had two other leaders in my same role, running sales teams as large as mine in different parts of the country. Break down, maybe just give a high level. What was Jake charged with, and what was even going on? Like, what we get the question often, like what what is your story? Like, what'd you do? What you didn't do? Why'd you go to prison?
Yeah.
And it's like, you can go read whatever lame article from the DOJ or some lame article from KSL.
Right.
But those are super one-sided and in a lot of ways not accurate.
I think I can give it a shot.
Give it a shot.
So, yeah, Jake was charged with, it was basically Medicare fraud. So it was healthcare fraud for certain paperwork that needed to be completed in order to obtain Medicare paying for these power wheelchairs, which was what your company basically did, was provide power wheelchairs to those primarily who qualified for it, and you usually qualified for it if you were you had Medicare benefits. And if you had the Medicare benefits, you could get a power wheelchair, and the business model was such that you would identify patients that wanted the chair, that were interested in the chair, and that wanted Medicare to pay for it. And they had to go in, and I forget all the regs, but they had to have a face-to-face visit with their doctor, and the doctor had to say a bunch of things. They can't do this, they can't perform activities of daily living this way, and they would benefit from a chair. And if the doctor says all of these things, then they can get a chair. If he doesn't say, if he says 4 of them, but not the 5th and 6th one, then they can't get a chair. And importantly, I believe the doctor there was a 45-day rule. So the chair, it has to be signed within 45 days of the diagnosis or something like that.
So the doctor had to have the face-to-face visit and write the chart note and sign a prescription
right
for the motorized wheelchair within 45 days of the face-to-face visit.
The face-to-face,
Yeah.
Well, these are Medicare patients. The doctors are probably not making much on them. They probably go to the bottom of the bin. And many times doctors were saying, yeah, they qualify, they benefit from a chair. This is a real person, unlike some of the crap that you see in Florida, especially where these are phantom patients and they're ordering chairs for nobody. No, this is a real patient. They would really benefit from this. Let me look at it. Oh, it's been 60 days. I'm going to sign it. The doctor sends that into this sales rep who's getting paid on a commission. The sales rep sees, oh, the doctor didn't put in one of the magic sentences, and the date is 50 days, to use an extreme example. Maybe the date's 90 days, but substantively, the doctor wants the patient to have the chair. The patient wants the chair. This is a great business. I get my little commission. Jake is a competitive guy, and he wants us to sell a lot of chairs because he's running a business, and it's a great product. So you know what? I'm going to go back. I'm going to send it back to the doctor, and we all know that's going to be a long road, and I'm not going to get my commission this month. I'm not going to hit my numbers. I got to do 10 chairs, and I only have 8. So sending it back to the doctor, that could take months. Who knows? So what if I just change the date to make it within the 45-day window? No big deal, right? So these young, mostly in their 20s, right out of, I'm going to say BYU, right? Just because I got to.
Clearly they're from BYU.
They're all from BYU, so that makes sense. But a lot of these kids out of school, they change the date, and Jake is aware of this is going on. There's some, and I'm going to give my advocate perspective, but I think Jake is aware of some of the minor changes that don't really change anything, and says, listen, guys, we got to send it back to the doctor, but I get that, if there's going to be some little things going on, well, then some big changes start happening, and they start making up doctor's notes out of whole cloth, to use the prosecutor's phrase, and they're just playing doctor, and they're saying, hey, this patient, I saw this patient. Maybe the patient isn't even real. They're signing, now they're forging signatures. So there's a certain percentage, which is a small percentage, but there's a couple of sales reps and they're selling a lot of chairs and making a lot of money, and they're making changes. When I finally saw them, when I saw the government's evidence, I said, Jake, this is a problem. And there are big changes going on. And anyway, so that's the evidence against the company who entered into kind of a deferred prosecution, didn't actually have to go to court, just paid fines, and then they've got to prosecute somebody, so they go after the 3 or 4 sales reps who are doing the most egregious changes and their boss. And to the day that I die, I will think that Jake knew about some of the little stuff that, frankly, I would have been okay with, and did not know about the big stuff. I don't know how the big changes benefit you as an owner, as a C-suite executive. Why do you want people doing that? you could have them do it the right way and probably make more money. So it never made any sense for you to be like, yeah, start changing things, just write whatever, because we're all making so much money. Now it makes a ton of sense for the sales reps because they're getting directly compensated. They benefit directly from making big changes, and maybe I sold 40 chairs this month and 20 of them.
Question on the big changes. Were the doctors intending for the patient to get a wheelchair on those specific circumstances, like on the big changes ones?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there was never an allegation that there were any dirty doctors in on this, like maybe we see on some others where they get a doctor to make up some things. I think the doctors, when interviewed on some of the big changes, say, I don't have any memory on this. So for the most part, the doctors intended the patients to get chairs. On the most egregious changes, I can't remember if they intended or not, or these sales reps were so brazen, after so many years that they just cut out the whole process. I don't remember that, but this wasn't a case where, oh yeah, they paid off doctors, or they said, hey, if you give us a note, we'll give you a kickback, or which we see a lot. I think it was mostly little changes that over time, a few individuals became comfortable with big changes, and they did those, and whether the doctor wanted the patient to have a chair or not, they didn't care. But I still think the patients always wanted the chairs. I don't think this was ever a situation where,
like some dead person.
Yeah, you were getting a chair, and this person didn't even know, but they found their name, and then you found some warehouse, and you put it in there because you're making money no matter what. The patients in virtually every instance wanted this chair because it would better their life.
In the early 2000s, there were a lot of Medicare fraud cases that included paying doctors, paying patients for like their social, for their Medicare card. You could electronically bill Medicare for any product or service, and you did not have to provide proof. So it'd be like in our world at solar, it'd be like for a while in solar, you could just tell the bank you installed solar and they'd pay you.
Right.
Well, it's the same way when the Medicare world was like, you could just say, I gave these 90 grandmas a power wheelchair, and they'd wire you $400,000 or whatever.
It's good money. Good business to be in.
So people were coming from other countries, Africa specifically, coming in, creating a business and a Medicare. They would receive a Medicare provided number, and then they would drive over to the local assisted living, pay 50 patients $100 each. They'd get their Medicare cards. So the patients were like, sweet, I just made $50, $100, whatever. They'd take all their Medicare cards, bill Medicare $5,000 for a power chair, never deliver a power chair, never get a prescription. They'd take their $500,000 and flee the country. So it was like super easy to do all that. And Medicare was dealing with this like all over Florida and Texas specifically, a lot of fraud, Medicare fraud. So we kind of got caught in the crosshairs of all of that was going down.
Big initiative. Yeah.
But to your point, if I remember right, they never found one patient that did not get the chair.
Right.
So everyone got a power chair. Every doctor wrote a prescription and intended the patient to get the power chair, and it became this cat and mouse game with the ADLs. You had to have, they cannot use a cane, they cannot use a walker, they cannot use a manual wheelchair. Therefore, they need a power wheelchair. Why? To complete these very specific ADLs, activities of daily living, and these diagnoses qualify them. If they say all of that in one paragraph, it's not good enough.
Right.
It had to be broken out into separate sentences. Patient cannot use a cane. Why? Why can't they use one? Because of this diagnosis. And because of this, they need to be able to use it. Okay, same thing on each step. So it became very, very meticulous, to which sales reps are, start cutting corners and that. So we really got caught in all of that.
And it's
basically
an unsustainable business model.
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, probably looking back on it, because you're like, I mean, if it were me, right, I'd send a declaration. That's what law firms do, right? When we deal with this, we need this proof. Okay, we'll draft it up. We'll write it exactly. We'll put the date. We'll send a cover sheet with instructions. And you know what? If they do it, it's awesome. Problem is when they don't do it, your sale just dies. And you have a patient who wants the chair. So now you've got this I mean, I deal with this now with my mass tort cases. Sometimes I need a landlord declaration to show this person lived at the house that burned down, and it's the easiest thing on earth until they don't sign it for 3 months.
But remember,
right?
We couldn't write it up.
Right.
That was considered coaching.
That was coaching. So that's
you
where
couldn't coach the doctor.
It's an unsustainable, compliant business model unless you're not running a business and you're like, well, if the doctors get me this magically, then it's going to be great. But if they don't, I can't coach them. And I can't, I can give these guidelines. So it feels like, if you're getting into this now, you're like, yeah, there's so many landmines here, trusting my sales reps to do this right. And what happened was what you would predict would happen. The sales reps were like, I'm not sending that back to the doctor because they don't know, but I know they wanted the patient to have the chair. So what's the big deal? And I will tell you, I don't think it was a big deal until the whistleblowers went out, filed their own case with a financial motivation as a key tam case, which is going to tell the government about it in exchange for hopefully a share in the future. Once that happened, there was a search warrant executed at your old headquarters, and they were investigating the company, and this is your division, frankly, and so they were investigating you and everything down, and this business model, like I say, I just think had a lot of problems with it, and it was inevitable.
Makes a big intent guy.
Yeah.
Big on the intent.
Correct. Everybody is.
Yeah.
Right? They should be.
They should be, but
if
they're not.
If somebody dies because of you, and you've been stalking them for 2 months and you stab them, versus if you look down at your phone while driving,
right,
and you hit them,
it's a different crime.
Totally.
Yeah.
But the outcome's the same, and you caused both of them. Everybody should care about intent.
I mean, it can be, like there's negligence and then there's intentional. So if you do something willfully or intentional, that's typically what's required to prove a crime, especially a felony. Maybe not going off the trail, but if for a felony like this with high stakes, to your point, you do have to show intent. Now they can show that pretty easily, an intent to. They don't have to say, well, Jake intended to rip off Medicare and to run this terrible scheme.
Yeah.
They don't have to prove that. They have to, well, he knew that someone had changed a date once or twice. He intended to submit this to Medicare, knowing that there were some things that weren't perfectly accurate. So intent is different, depending on how you define it. And that's why, with your case, eventually you are up against it's a tough game that you're playing, because you say, well, I didn't have any intent on those big changes, but yeah, I kind of knew a little bit about the little changes, but I didn't think they were a big deal. That's where your case was challenging, because what was the line? It's kind of like saying you're kind of pregnant. I knew about the little changes, but not the big changes. I empathized, and I think we were ready to go to trial, and we probably would have if we didn't have, such a potential for a long prison sentence. If we lost, the stakes were so high, but I got it, and you were just running a business. But when you have 5 people get an amazing deal who actually did the changes, who made the changes, who made the money, and say, yeah, well, Jake told me to, they don't have to say, well, yeah, he told me don't do the big ones, but do the little ones. They could fudge on that. And if I were their lawyer, I would have done whatever is the best. And that's the thing. Their lawyer, they do what's best for their client. I was doing what's best for Jake. If I could have gotten a dismissal for Jake because he testified against someone else, as long as it's ethical, I will do whatever. My job isn't to do justice. My job is to do the best job I can for my client. And, you kind of get into where everybody's pointing fingers. And that's why I say the conspiracy is such a hammer they have, because if they can flip, if they can flip 2 or 3 people, and then you're the last man standing, which you kind of were, right?
Yeah.
But
then you're in trouble.
What are the damages?
So the damages, well, Jake can tell you, every one of, so the government's position is every one of these chairs that was paid for by Medicare was paid for under information that was inaccurate. And if they would have known that all these changes were made, they wouldn't have paid that money. They wouldn't have reimbursed for the Medicare chairs, right? So that can be what, 10, 15, 20 million. Basically every sale that had any change whatsoever is tainted. And if we would have known about that, we wouldn't have paid the money because we're the federal government and we're very careful with our money.
Sure, yeah.
And so they take the position
so
that
you're saying
the damages are every chair that we paid for.
You're telling them, but the doctors intended for them to get it.
I told them that many times.
Right, and
yes.
so you're like...
And the patient got it.
Yes.
But they're like, but you did it wrong. That was supposed to be a 7 and it was a 1, so gotcha.
So the doctor intended it and the patient received it.
Right.
So where's the crime?
They don't care, though. And a saying I heard once that it's kind of cheesy, but it really fits with what I do. Where you stand on an issue depends on where you sit. And I made these arguments to the lead prosecutor on the case, and his opinion was this is one of the most egregious healthcare frauds I've ever seen. And I was like, well, I used to work in this office, and I've seen some of the Ponzi schemes that we've dealt with. Utah's no stranger to financial frauds. And some of the, just the shit that people make up, it's pretty bad. And then if you look in, especially back east in Florida is where it's notorious, but some of the healthcare fraud, like this is, okay, let me assume that everything you're saying is true. And they were just making up things, making up doctor's notes, and changing dates, using chiseling, to alter documents. I still come back to, but the patients were all okay with this. The doctors were okay with this for the most part, and they absolutely did not believe me. I've heard some folks associated with the case say this was one of the biggest, most egregious healthcare frauds in the state. I have to respectfully I was down at BYU, and I heard somebody giving a presentation once, and I was teaching evidence with my uncle, and he's like, don't listen to that. I said, I'm not going in there. I'm not going to go listen to that. So, that's why I'm skeptical. This gambling thing with Chanty Bilips may be awful, and it may be a bunch of people that knew what they were getting themselves into, but some laws were broken. I'm just skeptical because I've seen their press releases. Just one quick story. I had a client last year who is a retired, I think he's truly a rocket scientist. Unlike Jake, he's not competitive. He wasn't young. He had retired, and he's just, he's all Patagonia'd out, when I met up with him, and just the most humble, older gentleman, harmless person you'll ever meet in your life. Well, he had decided, he and a guy in his church in Salt Lake decided that they wanted to renovate a hotel out in Tooele because they both retired, and they had some money, but modest. They had kind of civil servant careers. So they go out to Tooele, and they find this old hotel, and they decide that they're going to renovate it, which was a huge project, and frankly, a project they never should have done. And the partner ended up being kind of a heavy drinker, and there was a bunch of issues. And my guy, he was a rocket scientist type guy. He was not a land developer. And none of it penciled out, and it was costing them a ton of money. Well, one night, this old building that they're going to renovate, this hotel, is burned by arsonists. So now they have a big pile of rubble out in Tooele that they don't know what to do with, and there are strict regulations with buildings of this age because of the asbestos that you have to clean it up a certain way. You have to come in and do the demolition, and you have to have trained people. Well, they don't do that, because they don't have the money. And they hire the local contractor that says, yeah, I'll go do it, no big deal. And he comes in, and they have the pile sitting there for, 6 months, and it's just sitting there, and they're wondering, what do we do? How do we responsibly clean this up? And it's hundreds of thousands of dollars to get it done right. So they finally, whatever they do with the case, he gets a summons from the U.S. Attorney's Office for environmental felony crimes, for failing to water down this pile of rubble properly, and for failing to provide adequate safety equipment to the folks cleaning it up. So he comes to me like, what the hell? And I look at it and I'm like, I've seen a lot, but this one, is actually, I'm putting this one high on the list. And I wasn't even doing a lot of these cases, but I'm taking this case. The prosecutor, very aggressive. The EPA agent, very aggressive. And, we go through the case, and Jake will, this will make Jake just cringe when he hears this. But they did say to me, listen, we'll give him, if he'll take a felony, we'll agree to no jail. Because I wanted a misdemeanor. I'm like, dude, this is a misdemeanor. Talk about intent. Like, this guy's just doing his best. He's a retired guy. And they're like, but if we get a misdemeanor, we get to argue for prison time. Because under the misdemeanor, there's a 0 to 12 months. And so technically you can go to jail on a misdemeanor. But if he'll take a felony, we'll affirmatively. And I'm like, let me get this straight. You don't think he needs to go to jail, but if he gets a misdemeanor, you think he does. You think he's dangerous if he's in on a misdemeanor. But it's the same person. And they're like, well, so is it competitive? You bet.
Yeah,
And
why do they do that?
And I talked to the client, and the client's like, let's go for it.
They're incentivized to get a win.
I don't know. Honestly,
it drives me crazy.
Jake's case, right? Big investigation, like huge company. This one? Give me a break. So,
but if that was their brother, they're not going to do that. They don't actually believe,
So I got to tell my client. I got to say, do you want door A or door B? I want door B, the misdemeanor, and I want to do my thing and argue. But if you go to prison for a few months because the judge, you need to know that. I can't tell you, oh, yeah, don't worry. And he says, yeah, let's do it. So we do it, and we put on, this guy, his church, he was part of this kind of this group out in Salt Lake, and he was an amazing grandfather, and he had done all these things. It was amazing. We put all this in front of Judge Sam, and Judge Sam actually, and you always enjoy these when they happen, but gave a tongue lashing to the government attorney about this case. And he said, I'm giving him probation. I can't believe this case was ever brought, and I'm giving him no conditions. So his probation is suspended today. No, I'm not putting him on supervised release. He doesn't need to be. It's a waste of time. He can pay his, whatever the fine is, couple $1,000, and he's done.
Wow.
It's like
win.
And what?
That's a win. So there's a conviction, but that was a win. But I was so upset about the case, and I was going to try the case, but again, did he not water down this material? Did he provide No, we would have lost, but I was that upset. So it happens all the time.
So a common question I get, we'll answer for the listeners as well, is well, what happened to your business partners? Because, the CEO owned 40% of the company.
Yeah.
I was the VP of sales. I owned 20%. Then there were a couple other guys who ran big sales orgs that owned 9%. And then there was, we'd bought some partners out, and equity was kind of shuffling around. But at the end of the day, there was 4 of us that ran the company.
Right.
The sales, the ops, the strategy, the vision.
Yes.
Well, what happened to the other 3-4 guys?
They came in the door first. They cooperated first. Right? They, for whatever reason, the prosecutorial decision, the discretion was that they were not included on the indictment like you were, along with the sales reps who were actually making the changes. The company hired a very reputable, fancy law firm. They went in, they cooperated. They frankly probably threw you under the bus in me piecing it together. And your partners, again, everybody's going to save their own skin. Your partners distanced themselves from any of the misconduct. I personally think they were about as involved as you were, that they were running a business. They knew that stuff happens. But that's the other thing. That's why it's so important to have responsible prosecutors, because just because you can be charged doesn't mean you need to be. And the prosecution team made the decision not to charge those other individuals. You gotta stop somewhere. And the company was not charged, but they did agree to kind of hey, don't charge us and we'll pay a fine and we'll be good. And so that was enough for the DOJ for whatever reason. And then your other business partners were sort of still with the company, and they cooperated. They were interviewed by the FBI. They were, they did all the things they needed to do. And if I was representing one of them, I would have done the same thing, right? Because again, I want to do what's best for my client, but none of them were charged because the company did get, some civil penalties and entered into what's known as a non-prosecution agreement. I think that's all public. But they were not charged like Jake had to go down with his ship.
So
plain and simple.
Yeah. So they lawyer up, get a big fancy, lawyer who pretends to be our friend for
Right.
quite some time.
This was before I had ever met you. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So the first year or two before you were involved.
Right.
Let's play what if game.
Okay.
You get on the case day 1,
Yeah.
not day 600.
Right.
What do you do differently, and what would you suspect the outcome could have potentially been?
It's hard to know, but if I'm representing, it depends on if I represent the company. If I represent the company, then totally I want to find a, one officer, director, that I can kind of give the government, and I want to find some lower level salespeople. Because I don't just want to say, yeah, nothing happened.
The company attorneys were very much like, cool, give them Jake, give them those 3 sales regional managers, and you guys are going to get out of this thing with a fine at worst.
Yeah, it benefits the company to throw them under the bus or find people. Then they can say, our investigation, we've investigated all of this, and here's what happened, government. We've basically done your job for you. Now all you need to do is just kind of make it official. And by the way, a lot of these attorneys are like me, former government prosecutors. They know the drill. They know that if they go in on behalf of the company and they make a fancy PowerPoint presentation and say, we spent $2 million on a big investigation and here's what we found. They also know that you're going to talk to them, because if you don't, they're going to fire you. So if I would have come to you, or if you would have come to me earlier on, I would have said, we need to negotiate terms on what you're going to say to them. And maybe I would have had more input as a, equity owner, or, you're not just an employee. Yes, we will talk to you, but I want to work this out because I don't want you throwing Jake under the bus. And then if they said, well, we're going to, we don't care, then you would have been done. You wouldn't have said a word. And I can't remember if you talked to him or not.
I did not.
But yeah.
No.
So I would have said, you're done.
Which is what I did.
It's not going to help
Mm-hmm.
you. And that's one of those things that if you would have hired me, could I have maybe gotten to the company earlier? Maybe they still would have said, no, we're going our direction and we don't want to hear from, an outside lawyer. But I would have tried.
Because
to shape the narrative earlier on.
But FBI and prosecution, they looked at all 3 sales teams and did a whole 2-book analysis, stacks of patient files. My team, my sales org, the other 2, so 3 big sales organizations, and they reviewed all of them.
Yeah.
And there was equal level, if not more level, of what they considered fraud and manipulation and chiseling in the other 2 divisions.
Right.
It was greater than mine.
Yeah, the case for whatever reason was cleaner in your division, and I'll put in I think people in Utah also. There's more of a confessional nature, and so I think there may have been people talked more. We love to talk, man.
Mm-hmm.
We love to talk in our community. So I don't know if that was it, and I can't remember why the other regions weren't targeted as much, but usually the reason you're targeted is because they have people who will talk. And in your team, they all talked.
Yeah.
And that's
and,
just
and it originated.
Yeah.
With the whistleblowers on my team.
Exactly. It was a case that, this community, this district was interested in, and they had a bunch of people that liked to talk. They had a whistleblower that gave evidence that was okay. There was evidence that this was going on, no question. It's whether or not, you should have been on the hook for it. And, obviously I have a different perspective, respectfully, than the government does, but I also told you to plead guilty.
Yeah. So
because we weren't going to just completely run the board. I didn't think.
This era of paper manipulation or altering, we'll call it. We called it the steroid era, like baseball, was happening like from 2008 to 2010. I think they kind of targeted those 3 years, 8, 9, 10. They broke into our office 2011. You and I meet 2012, 2013. We're fighting this thing. We're facing trial in 2015. Eventually plead guilty. I go to prison 2016 to 2018. The company's just operating without me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they just move on and, do their thing, continue to stay in business. So this is 10 years old now.
Right.
But it lives in my life every week. Something comes up at work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Something comes up in my life every single week. This is a dark cloud, follows you forever. And we've paid our debt to society.
Yeah.
We've done our time. We've paid our money. We've done all of it.
You paid extraordinary restitution, and I will say that most people don't pay a penny of restitution. It just hangs. You got out there and figured out a way. That's who you are. You're a guy who's like, I'm going to get this paid. I don't care what it is, $4 million, I'm going to figure this out, even though it's painful, and I know it was painful for you and your family. But you're not the kind of guy that says, well, I'm just going to be a deadbeat and let this hang over my head forever, and that's rare. And the government, you can imagine, they're like, well, we just assume people can't ever pay us, and so we're just going to send them notices forever and whatever. And I've always taken the position, pay your restitution.
Mm-hmm.
And, and then I can use that as something else that you've done to warrant a more favorable sentence. You did it, like I don't want to glaze you too much here, Jake, but you were a perfect client. You listened to me, and I've had a lot of clients not listen to me and yell at me, and, and I can get pretty animated when we get down to it, like, dude, you need to listen to me. And you did. And I said, pay your restitution, and here are your risks, but here's the plan. When you did go off and do your time and you were able to run a lot of miles, you availed yourself to certain programs out there, and I think did a good job of mitigating what could have been a really bad situation and minimizing, I always equate it to a couple of seasons, 2 or 3 Christmases and not, decades of them. But it was hard because I know you're a competitor, and I know, listening to me was probably hard, and I get that. But, hopefully in the long run now you realize, messing with the federal system, it could have, the people make poor decisions. And I hear this all the time from clients. I was in, facility, and I talked to a guy, especially here, LDS guy, family, all of this, who wanted to go to trial, and he's in for 27 years,
Oof.
And I'm in for 4. And I was mad about doing the 3 or 4, but when I heard about the 27, I'm glad that I'm getting out. And
so you play. Okay, last question, because we got to wrap up. We all have jobs we're supposed to be at. One more what if question. Knowing what you know now, and it's behind us, it's freaking 10 years old. I mean, I was under investigation 15 years ago,
right,
which is crazy. People are still talking about it, still pull it up on any sort of background. Lost opportunities. I mean, in about 5 seconds, I can count north of $20 million that it's cost me.
Yeah.
Like in that fast. And if all the other stuff I don't know about, the deals that we don't get, right? The deals that don't come our way for our business, the opportunities that I don't hear about, it's way over that.
Sure.
That it has personally cost me, my family, my business, Mick, other people associated with me, in the millions.
Yeah.
So knowing what we know, and it's all done and supposed to be behind us, but it's like never actually behind you. We decide 2.5, I think it was 3 weeks before trial, was when we found out they freaking stole our emails. They took a couple of our witnesses, scared the crap out of them, and flipped them to their side. That all went down the last 2-3 weeks, and we're like, dude, I remember saying, if we can't win something as obvious as them not using a taint team and stealing our playbook, flipping 2 of my witnesses from being a witness of ours to being like, oh, change their story, now I'm going to be a witness for them.
Right.
We don't have a chance.
Yeah.
That was
correct.
I remember saying that, thinking that, and going, dude, we're screwed.
Yeah.
Eric, we got to make a deal, because if we can't win the obvious ones,
we're cooked.
We're cooked.
Yeah.
So we don't make that decision.
Okay.
We don't see the writing on the wall, and we're like, Eric, I'm going the distance.
Right.
I'm not a good client. We are going to trial. I'm not.
Hey, you're
guilty.
a paying client, so
which makes me also a great client.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So I'm a paying client, and that was $1 million.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, we're going to trial, dude. We've been prepping for this for 5 years.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Right.
30 days. It was supposed to be like a 4 to 6 week trial.
Been 2.5 weeks. Yeah.
2.5 weeks. So we had a 3-week trial.
Sure.
Hypothetical. What happens?
I'll tell you what happens. I mean, if the facts are the same, right?
Yeah, nothing's changed.
I get in a bunch of fights with the prosecutor, right? We probably add a couple of my partners to it. It's financially a lot better for me, right? Because I'm in trial for 3 weeks. I have a great year that year. We cross-examine the inside sales team. We score some points, right? We get them on some things. We say, well, weren't you sort of manipulated by the FBI agents? Or we get the whistleblowers up and we say, well, you're doing this for money, right? And we hit them, but they put on, 30 witnesses. I put on, Bree, and I put on your father-in-law, and I put on the maybe 6 people that'll still work with us who can say very limited things, right? Say Jake's a great guy, he's good character, we love him. I put on all of those things, and I can't remember how many counts it was, 10 counts or something like that. And you're convicted on.
It was 9.
Yeah, you're convicted on 5 of those counts. I mean, that's just me.
Yeah.
But we do a good job. We go back to the war room every night and say that went great, man. We really got them. Their opening wasn't that great, and we've got the patients really wanted these. The doctors wanted them to have the chairs. We do all of that. We put on a great trial, and you go to sentencing with Judge Newfer, and instead of the stipulated deal, we didn't give Judge Newfer any discretion, right? He didn't get any discretion. This is the guy that took Jeremy Johnson into custody. This is a guy who told my client down in St. George, who had a securities fraud case, that he viewed him as his investors all still loved him, and he said this is like Stockholm syndrome for a kidnapper. Same judge. So I know this judge, right? I didn't want to give him, I didn't tell you this because I didn't want to freak you out, but, we go to Senate without a deal, and the prosecutor says, hey, it's 26 to 28 years. And I say, no, but give him just a couple, and the judge probably gives you 20, right? I mean, that's a very realistic scenario, and you're probably still there. So
yeah, I remembered
something to think about.
I remembered our guidelines being between 12 and 15 years. Does that sound right?
It was a little, depending on what enhancements they may have applied, it was stretching into 20, because I remember we stopped talking about it after a certain point.
And it's
because it's a painful conversation.
It could very easily have been 15 to 20 years. I have said for the last decade that I was looking at 12 to 15 years based on my guidelines. But that's probably, there's a lot of that time period in my life I don't remember, dude.
Yeah, you do 85, let's say it's 20, you do 85% of that. You probably don't qualify for the same camp that you went to and some of the programs that you were able to get into. It's a different ballgame. You're taken into custody forthwith after the verdict, meaning they put, I don't think you ever had handcuffs.
Never.
Your whole time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything about it, as much as it sucked, I think we tried to make it as respectable, as you self-surrender, you go, you can say goodbye to your family properly. So if you go down that other road, like I said, I still believe that road, man, and let's say you win. This is the one thing that I'll tell clients. You win, right? And the time that 20 months or so that you did out in Colorado, you don't have to do. Obviously, that's a win. But all the things you're dealing with now, unfortunately, you're still probably dealing with. You get an acquittal, and you got to send out statements. I've had clients that, I've had cases dismissed, and they're still getting notices. There's still background checks that's popping up. So
you're still failing
an acquittal. Once you're indicted, it's out there, it's in the universe, and you're still having to explain it, and you're not innocent until proven guilty, especially in these kinds of cases. So you're still dealing with it, even if we ran the board, but the stakes were incredibly high.
The good news for you is that by me taking that deal and not still being in prison, like if I was still in prison, your team might have probably beat ours.
Don't think I haven't thought about that.
Jack's team probably beats Tyson's, and you guys are maybe in the championship.
Yeah, we finally win some games. I think we won most of our games, and then we're playing
Team Utah.
Team Utah. Like, is that even a name? And it's this Kilgore guy. Yeah. Okay. Remind me not to come.
Oh man. Well, it's been fun having you in, dude.
Yeah, great to be here.
I think a lot of questions, a lot of people hit us up on this stuff, don't they?
Yeah, it's good to get that out there.
We could talk for hours.
It's forever.
And,
yeah.
Do you know I worked for this company? I worked for Source One before.
Yeah.
And just to hear your perspective and to know my journey along this, from a small portion of it, it's crazy.
It's probably hard because you don't know everything that's going on, and you don't know everything that he knows and I know because we don't tell anybody. Yeah. And then one day he says, "Yeah, I pled guilty," and you're like, and just remember, people plead guilty to stuff they didn't do all the time. So when you see someone plead guilty, and I'm not necessarily, Jake, there was stuff that you knew about, and I think we kind of established that, but people are put in, especially those without resources. You were lucky in that you had an insurance policy and a company, and you did have that, because I'm not going to work for you if you've got this huge case. These cost millions of dollars to defend and hire experts and everything else. And if you've got $5,000 to your name, it's hard. Well, you're going to get a public defender. Well, I don't want that, and I want a rigorous defense. And well, then go just take a deal. And that's where the system does scare me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got comments in a game, but I think we're gonna have to skip them.
Okay.
For the sake of time.
My long-winded. Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna skip the comments, but I'm gonna hit a game.
We're playing a game.
We're gonna
end
play a game.
happy.
Yeah, we're gonna end on a game because that's fun. Before we hit the game, this book in the background, Trial Running, breaks it all down. If you haven't heard the full detail of the story, you can buy Trial Running. You can get the audio version. It's all on Amazon or whatever.
Is that like a typo? I thought it was Trail Running.
No, bro.
You let it go all the way through, and you didn't
all the way through.
Spell it right?
Yeah, they didn't have spell check when I made the book. Yeah,
that's awkward.
Yeah, it's super weird. So we just call it Trial Running now. So yeah, you can get your copy of the book, read the full detail. It's got a lot of the numbers and a lot of the things that we had to skip past, but we got a comment about this book. So I'm just gonna read it because this dude DM'd me this week.
Okay.
And I thought it was fitting for this episode. We have a rule though: if you DM us, we don't disclose your name because that
anonymous.
It's anonymous.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so this person introduced themselves and says, "I don't have Instagram, and made this account to reach out to you. I'm a huge fan of your WNBA pod, and just finished reading your book for the first time. First off, your book literally brought me to tears due to how I could relate to your experience. That said, I absolutely deserved the time I served as a juvenile. During my last year of high school, I was drinking and driving after a party and caused a crash that took the life of the driver I hit. From the moment forward, my life completely changed. I was lucky to spend only a little over a year and a half in juvenile jail. 2 months after I was released, I ran my first 50K. This summer, I completed my first 2 100-milers. I am now 21 years old and moving to Salt Lake this summer to finish the last 2 years of my bachelor's at the U. Thank you for the amazing read." So,
cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Super cool that he reached out. I wrote the book clearly not to make money. I wrote it as with two things in mind. One, I wanted a historical of what happened, and I want it for my family.
Yeah.
Two, if it could help one person get through whatever they're getting through, that next aid station mentality, that's why I wrote the book. So it's cool to hear from people that read it and read the story and can relate, and then they share that.
Inspirational, yeah.
Yeah, super inspirational.
Very cool.
So very cool. We'll leave on that note, on a positive note, on the book and this game, because I know you dudes are big NBA guys.
Yeah.
You ready?
Let's go.
Go Jazz, right?
Okay. This week's game is called Keep 5, Cut 5. Okay. The NBA All North American White Team.
Okay.
Much like the Trail Running's U-Roy, it is North American athletes only. So you got to think North American, white, all NBA.
Okay.
I have a list of 10 white NBA players.
Yeah.
I'm going to give them to you in order. It's already predestined. You just got to pick between the two of you, collaborate, keep or cut to make the best all North American white
We
squad.
lose a lot without you.
So like Luka not on there.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
No Luka, no Jokic.
Let's go.
Okay. Here it is. I'm going to start with a very, very, very obvious number one.
Keep. Larry Bird. Keep.
Larry Bird.
Oh, we're going all time, not current.
All time.
Yeah.
All time.
Yeah, keep.
Definitely
That
keep.
one's easy.
Okay. Let me rephrase it. Keep 5, cut 5, NBA, all NBA, North American white team. Player number one, Larry Bird.
Okay. Keep. Yeah. Obviously.
Easy.
Bill Walton.
College or pro.
All NBA.
Keep.
What?
Yeah. If you look at his statistics with the Blazers and early in his career, I'd keep him.
What about you? You guys got to decide together.
He's very confident about that. I would.
And his college, his college career obviously doesn't count.
I
but
for sure would've cut him.
I think he's a legend.
Okay,
Yeah, you know his.
I
sort
love
of,
him.
You
He's
know
awesome.
his broadcasting clown
Yeah.
personality, but
He's great.
He was a freak in the '70s. Dude was a freak. So I'm gonna keep him.
Okay, we'll roll.
Okay.
He's gonna smash me in court. I can't. What am I gonna do? Right now?
Yeah, you can't really argue with him. He's going to cross you real quick. Okay, I'm shocked. Okay, I'm with Mick. I'm shocked you're keeping Bill.
I don't know who else is on this list.
I know. I got some names,
You're gonna-
bro.
okay,
I got
you're
some
gonna do
names.
Stockton. Okay,
I
here
got
we
some
go. Let's
freaking
go.
names coming. John Stockton.
Keep. Dude. Are you out of your mind?
Cut.
What?
Dude, Steve Nash is gonna be on here. We can play Nash. It's just they play the same game.
You're getting bullied.
In no
were
way.
getting
In
bullied.
no way is Steve Nash better than.
You
John
want an
Stockton.
interesting podcast, or you want to just be like, yeah?
We're supposed to end happy. Now I'm
yeah.
pissed.
All right, keep Stockton.
Thank you.
All right, that's fine.
Wow. Okay, we got 7 names left, and you can only keep 2 out of the next
Okay.
7. You could be cooked here.
Yeah,
Wait, we got Stockton and Bird.
You got Stockton
Yeah,
Bird
that's
and
great.
Bill Walton.
another big man. Yeah, we got a big man.
Okay. Pete Maravich.
He's nice. No
Yeah,
defense.
I'll cut him.
Cut him.
Yeah.
Okay. The lefty, Chris Mullen.
We already got a small forward.
Yeah, we don't want Chris.
So
Paul.
he's out.
Yeah, that's easy.
Okay. Kevin McHale. The second time we've dropped a Kevin McHale references on
Who
this
else could
this
play
week's.
power forward?
I think if we've got Walton, we don't need McHale. But I'm telling you, the Walton of the '70s, not the '80s Celtics Walton that was
where he was just
Right.
yes.
Who else is a big? Because
because
he's not going to hit it.
Lambier, of course.
The bad boys.
I would rather have McHale over Lambert.
But you don't tell us who else is on this list.
Nope. Nope.
You wanna keep
McHale's
him?
nice.
It's your call.
You don't know who's coming.
Your call. You want
It
to
would
wait?
suck to lose. We need 2 bigs. And McHale's nice.
Big Mark.
Dirk
Big Mark.
is the best white. He's not there, though. McHale is probably the best North American white power forward ever.
Sounds like we're keeping him. I gotta listen to this guy. It's his show.
I'm going to be.
Final verdict.
Look, they're doing like signals to each
Bill
other.
Walton
Yeah,
played center.
I believe so.
Okay, so we got a center, a power forward, a small forward,
Yeah.
and a point.
Yes.
All right, we're going to keep McHale.
Okay.
I need a shooting guard.
Well, here you go. Jerry West.
That's a point guard.
He's the logo of the
Yeah.
league. I mean, is Jerry West is he a 2?
I thought he was a point
Does he
guard.
play the 2 or
I-
is he a point? I think he could play a 2. I think we could slot him as a 2.
You could. You
I
could
don't
slot
coach
him.
And then
Team
there's only
Utah,
one
but-
more after this?
You got 4 guys. You got Jerry
Yeah.
plus 3 more coming. You got 3 more after Jerry West.
I'd put, if we can use Nash. Well, I'm probably not gonna
Yeah,
say
let's
no.
cut him. Just
Yeah,
cuz.
let's put him.
Let's
Put
keep
Nash.
it fun.
Put
Okay.
Nash in there.
Cut
Yeah.
him.
Rick Barry.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
No.
I'm not gonna. If I cut Jerry West, I'm not gonna put Rick Barry on. So
Okay. Steve Nash.
yes,
Okay, we'll keep him.
Nash was
We're
freaking
perfect.
amazing.
We are smoked.
amazing.
This is perfect. I mean,
If-
you're
with
cutting.
any size,
You're cutting
in the backcourt.
Okay, so you're cutting number 10. You're cutting Bob Cousy. That's an easy cut.
Okay.
So your team ends up being
Not bad.
you got John Stockton at the 1, Steve Nash at the 2, Larry Bird at the 3, Kevin McHale at the 4, Big Bill Walton at the 5.
Oh, we got a center.
Yeah,
What do you know?
You know what?
You build a team around a center.
I'm not mad at your pick anymore.
Yeah. Just like Jake, I said a lot of things he was mad at,
but we ended up pretty good, didn't we?
I took the plea deal, and it turned out pretty damn good.
We did our time. We got in. We got out. We got a podcast. We got a business. We got DC Peaks. We got a sponsorship with Rockstar. Things are great, dude.
We got one home.
Surviving.
Stop looking in the freaking rear view, bro. Look forward.
That was good. Nice.
Good job, bro. Eric,
Thanks,
Eric
guys.
Benson, everybody. Thanks for coming in. This has been another episode of The Next Aid Station.